Naruto. Forging God System. Starting with a sword as a gift to everyone. Chapter 1. Naraku's consciousness gradually surfaced from the abyss of unconsciousness. His eyes slowly opened, vision blurry, and his head throbbed with unbearable pain as if it had exploded. As Naraku awoke, a look of surprise appeared on Uchiha Makoto's face. She quickly approached Naraku, asking with concern, "Naraku, how are you feeling now?" Naraku glanced at the black-haired loli beside him and subconsciously said he was fine. Uchiha Makoto was very happy to hear Naraku's response and left to get Naraku dinner. Naraku lay in bed, recalling the memories in his mind. His name was Naraku, some people in China have the surname Nai, and his current name was Uchiha Naraku. Thinking of this strange Uchiha, his current small body, and the unfamiliar house, he roughly knew that he had probably transmigrated, and into the world of the legend, 5 Village Skirmish. Naraku thought about his original world. No father, no mother, no wife, no children, and he grew up in the tomato orphanage. He was also an ultimate, hardcore Naruto fan. The most important thing was the dump truck he encountered on his way to work. Don't ask why there was a dump truck in the city. He could understand transmigrating into this Black Zetsu saves mother story. His only relief was seeing his Redmi phone fall into the river before he died, wondering if his innocence could be preserved. Before he could recall much, Uchiha Makoto came over and fed Naraku some dinner. Naraku then sent Uchiha Makoto away, citing the need for good rest. Next came the most important step for a transmigrator after transmigration, finding the golden finger. It wasn't that Naraku absolutely needed a golden finger, although as a Naruto fan, he knew most things about Naruto, he couldn't contend with the many cheats in the ninja world. Especially those 2 cheats, Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke, and there were even more cheats in the unburnable legend. Look at Orochimaru, such an excellent researcher. In any other world, he could definitely be a major villain, but in the Naruto world, he could only assist the protagonist. Jade Emperor, Buddha, God Almighty, 3 pure ones above. With my unparalleled talent, supreme will, and effort. Deep Blue, are you there? System Bro, Chat Group, Old Man, ... After calling for a long time, just as Naraku was about to try other methods to verify his golden finger, suddenly, a mechanical voice sounded in Naraku's mind. Immediately, a light blue translucent screen appeared before Naraku. The All Heavens blacksmith system is attempting to bind. Congratulations on becoming an apprentice blacksmith. Task 1. As a blacksmith, you must have your own forging ground. Please immediately find your personal forging ground. Seeing the system appear, Naraku breathed a sigh of relief. Although it wasn't the kind he most wanted, like a Ninja World invincible system, a great villain system, a role-playing system, Deep Blue. But as long as there was a system, he believed it shouldn't be too bad. Even if this one seemed to be for auxiliary career development, after all, systems in the system circle shouldn't be too embarrassing. Since the system currently didn't display more detailed information, Naraku suspected it was because the system was in the trial binding phase and he might need to complete the first task to know more. At this point, Naraku no longer lay down. He prepared to quickly search for a forging ground. He was afraid that if the system didn't bind for a long time and disappeared, he would cry himself to death. Just as Naraku got up, he suddenly felt dizzy, then fell back onto the bed. Before his consciousness blurred, Naraku only managed to say, "My God." By the time Naraku got up from bed again, it was already early morning the next day. By then, Naraku had gradually begun to receive many memories from the original owner. Gradually, Naraku realized that he hadn't just transmigrated, but had transmigrated long ago, only recently breaking through the mystery in the womb and awakening his memories. Mainly, Uchiha Naraku was too similar to him when he was young, practically a scum among sages. Uchiha Naraku previously had a Jonin father and a Chunin mother. Although their strength was decent, they died during the semi-peaceful years after the First Ninja World War ended. His former Jonin father had always been a staunch hawk, the top subordinate of the Uchiha clan's great elder. And Uchiha Makoto was the great elder's granddaughter, so Naraku had always had a good relationship with Uchiha Makoto, like childhood sweethearts. Thinking about Uchiha Makoto's appearance and personality when she grew up, Naraku immediately decided that, in the spirit of, if I don't go to hell, who will, he must claim this beauty. As for whether second pillar Uchiha Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha would appear or who would give birth to them, Naraku didn't care. By the time Uchiha Sasuke was born, Naraku suspected he might have already become a god with the help of his unparalleled talent and strong will, plus a little help from his golden finger. He couldn't just do nothing to ensure the plot stayed the same as the original, that would truly be a path to self-destruction. Naraku immediately went out to seek Uchiha Makoto's help, as a qualified forging room wasn't something an orphan like him could easily acquire. "Naraku, are you feeling better?" Uchiha Makoto asked with concern. Then she cautioned, "You can't just casually, what was it called again? Oh right, you can't just casually mock others anymore, okay." Naraku knew Uchiha Makoto was referring to how he had previously mocked Uchiha Keita, a young boy, and ended up getting beaten by that hothead along with a group of other kids he often mocked. It was thanks to the fists of those kids that he broke through the mystery in the womb. Naraku immediately resolved to repay those kids well in the future. "It's nothing, Sister Makoto. It's just that those kids were saying only Fugaku was worthy of you, that's why I mocked them. Sister Makoto, the person you marry can only be me," Naraku said, looking at Uchiha Makoto with the innocent eyes of a child. Uchiha Makoto, unaccustomed to such bold words, immediately blushed and said, "What, kids? You're not even as old as them. Anyway, no more fighting a group by yourself. If you fight, call me." Then Naraku explained his desire for a forging room. Although Uchiha Makoto was surprised by Naraku's idea, she was still willing to help. Uchiha Makoto thought for a while and gave Naraku two options. One was to help Naraku find an empty house to build a blacksmith workshop, which might require discussing it with the Uchiha clan. If the Uchiha clan fully supported it, a portion, or even a large portion, of the income might have to be given to the Uchiha clan. The second option was to go to Cat Granny. The Ninja Cat clan was recently preparing to expand their arms business. If Naraku sought Cat Granny's help now, she would likely be very happy. Naraku thought for 2 seconds and gave his answer. He planned to go to Cat Granny. First, he didn't want to get too deeply involved with the Uchiha clan regarding blacksmithing. Second, he couldn't accept losing control over his weapon sovereignty. What if he created excellent weapons and the Uchiha clan tried to seize them? Finally, he needed a certain degree of privacy. Therefore, the territory of the Ninja Cat clan, which had few people, was most suitable for him. So, Naraku and Uchiha Makoto went to the Ninja Cat clan's territory. Led by Ninja Cat Hideyoshi, they met Cat Granny. Looking at the cats running around, Naraku felt an itch in his hands, wanting to pet them. "Little Makoto, is there something you need from me?" Cat Granny said with a smile, looking at Uchiha Makoto. "Cat Granny, I've come to you with a request." Uchiha Makoto then explained her purpose. It was then that Cat Granny noticed the handsome young Naraku beside Uchiha Makoto. Looking at the somewhat slender Naraku, she was a little skeptical if he could forge qualified ninja tools. However, she did have an idle location she could offer Naraku. It was a casual move anyway. She was willing to let this little guy try. So, Cat Granny looked at Naraku and said, "Little Naraku, I do have an idle blacksmith workshop. How do you plan to cooperate with me?" Naraku respectfully replied to Cat Granny, "I would like to rent your blacksmith workshop. If I forge some items, and you find them suitable, you can purchase them directly at a price similar to the market wholesale price. However, I might forge some non-sale items, which I will not sell casually." Cat Granny looked at Naraku's confident demeanor and didn't dampen the young man's spirits. She offered a relatively low rent. How about 50,000 ryo? In Naruto, Ichiraku Ramen's signature ramen costs 60 ryo, so for easier understanding, let's convert it to about 15 RMB. Naraku calculated that for roughly a few hundred yuan a month, he could rent a blacksmith workshop. He quickly thanked Cat Granny. Then he went with Uchiha Makoto and Ninja Cat Hideyoshi to see the blacksmith workshop. Looking at the dilapidated but usable blacksmith workshop, Naraku was very satisfied. So he immediately took 50,000 ryo from his small stash and gave it to Ninja Cat Hideyoshi to hand over to Cat Granny. Before leaving, he also gave Hideyoshi some catnip. Hideyoshi gave Naraku a look that said, "You're a sensible kid," and then left. Afterward, Naraku persuaded Uchiha Makoto to leave and began his next step. Naraku called up the system panel in his mind and submitted a mission application. Ding! Along with a crisp notification sound, lines of clear text flashed across the translucent screen. Mission complete. Congratulations, host, you have received mission rewards. 1. Blacksmithing skill bonus. When the host is in his exclusive blacksmith workshop, his blacksmithing technique will receive a slight bonus, and his blacksmithing talent will be significantly enhanced. 2. Akame ga Kill. World subordinate tool forging technology. To maintain long-term rule, the founding emperor of an empire, with unimaginable wealth and power, gathered the world's top craftsmen. Using legendary, super dangerous species as materials, along with rare metals like orichalcum and a large number of lost secret techniques, they developed 48 unreplicable weapons, known as imperial arms. 400 years after the creation of imperial arms, the then emperor also attempted to create imperial arms, but was consistently unable to surpass the previous weapons. Therefore, the emperor regarded this as a disgrace, sarcastically called these weapons subordinate tools, and sealed them away. 3. Orichalcum * 1 portion. Naraku quickly claimed the mission rewards. Soon, countless techniques for forging Akame ga Kill. World subordinate tools appeared in Naraku's mind. It took Naraku a long time to recover. The subordinate tools and imperial arms in the Akame ga Kill world had similar requirements, but imperial arms demanded higher configurations. 1. Materials from powerful creatures. 2. Rare metals like orichalcum. 3. The top-tier skills of the most advanced craftsmen summoned from all over the world, including a large number of lost secret techniques. Thinking about the many material requirements, Naraku couldn't help but feel that forging subordinate tools would be difficult, but he planned to check the system panel for any turning points. The text on the translucent screen continuously changed, finally settling on the following information. System membership level, beginner. Name, Uchiha Naraku. 8 years old. Overall strength, Ninja Academy student. Blacksmith level, B+ with blacksmith workshop bonus. Forged weapon bonuses. 1. Talent replication. When others use the blacksmith's B rank or higher weapons, the blacksmith can randomly acquire attributes, abilities, talents, ninjutsu, or bloodlines brought by others. The stronger the weapon's owner, the higher the weapon's compatibility, the greater the weapon's mastery, the better the rewards obtained. 2. Undead Legion. Enemies killed by using the blacksmith's B rank or higher weapons, or the death of the weapon's owner, can all be collected into the blacksmith's exclusive Hall of Death. 3. Weapon sovereignty. The blacksmith possesses powerful suppressive force over weapons, capable of directly rendering weapons ineffective, or even causing them to backfire on their owners. Mission item. Orichalcum * 1 portion. Blacksmith reputation. 0. Lottery description. Blacksmith reputation can be used for lotteries. Each 10 reputation points allows 1 lottery draw. The lottery may yield precious biological materials, rare metals, out-of-print blacksmithing techniques. Evaluation. If conditions are suitable, you now possess the ability to forge subordinate tools. Due to having your exclusive blacksmith workshop, your blacksmithing technique has received a bonus, allowing you to forge all subordinate tool-level weapons. In terms of combat, as a Ninja Academy student, your strength is merely that of a Ninja Academy student, not even a genin. But congratulations, you don't even qualify to be on the Ninja World battlefield. Looking at the attribute panel and system description, Naraku felt a surge of excitement. Especially those 2 forged weapon bonuses, weren't they just wildly encouraging him to forge weapons and give them to strong individuals? Not only were there abundant attribute and talent rewards, but he could even turn the strong's deceased subordinates and the strong themselves into his cronies, all joining his 10,000 soul banner as brothers. Although he could keep the weapons for himself, what use would it be for an 8-year-old Ninja Academy student, even if he had a few subordinate tools in his hands? What good would it do? Any Jonin could easily defeat him, never mind subordinate tools, even imperial arms, what difference would they make? Therefore, the most important thing for him at this stage was to take advantage of the novice protection period to give away all his weapons and then enhance his own hard power. If he acquired the Senju clan's physique, Tsukumo Hataki's swordsmanship, Hiruzen Sarutobi's 5-element ninjutsu, and so on, these things would improve him even more than 10 years of training in the Ninja Academy. He wouldn't be so foolish as to keep things to himself, only to be discovered as useless, thrown to the front lines, and then act like a typical useless protagonist. 30 years east of the river, 30 years west of the river, do not bully a young man for his poverty. Then, Forced into a desperate situation on the battlefield, he would pull out his weapons to show off and slap faces. That's not how you lie low, that's not lying low, that's stupidity. He would absolutely not do the things that web novel protagonists from 10 years ago liked to do. However, the materials and biological components required for blacksmithing now also required him to put some thought into them. Naraku was now preparing to attempt his first forging in his life, and after some thought, he decided to start with the simplest shuriken. Having completed the preparatory work, Naraku stood quietly in the blacksmith's room, his eyes serious. Various forging tools were laid out before him. He carefully picked up a piece of crude iron, placed it into the furnace to heat, and sparks flew. Once the metal turned red, Naraku used tongs to pull it out and began to gently hammer it. His movements gradually became more skilled, and the shape of the shuriken began to emerge. Sweat dripped from his forehead, but his gaze never left the work in his hands. As time passed, the outline of the shuriken became clearer. Afterward, it was placed into a quenching medium to complete the hardening process. Then came the appropriate grinding, and at this point, the sharp edges of the shuriken gleamed with a cold light. Next was the crucial step of incorporating a subordinate tool forging secret art. There were many subordinate tool forging secret arts, but most required specific forging conditions or materials. Naraku could only choose a relatively simple secret art. Naraku paused his movements, gazing at his creation. At this moment, the blacksmith system began its evaluation. Shuriken D+, limited by materials and the blacksmith's proficiency. Even with a B-grade forging technique, the weapon did not reach C grade. However, this weapon is far ahead of other weapons of the same level. Naraku reflected on his recent actions and realized that he was a bit overconfident. His mind understood it, but his hands didn't quite. Ding! Detected blacksmith's first successful forging of a D-grade weapon, rewarding one free lottery draw. Seeing this first reward, Naraku suddenly remembered that he should also have an initial grand gift package. System bro, where's my free grand gift package? You didn't embezzle it, did you? Naraku directly asked. Unfortunately, the system was an imbecile, not even counting as artificial intelligence. And Naraku felt that the first mission reward might just be the initial grand gift package, so he could only give up on it. Next, Naraku began to furiously forge in the blacksmith's room. Due to the blacksmith's room having exclusive forging talent bonuses and powerful subordinate tool memory inheritance, Naraku's forging proficiency increased rapidly. Moreover, Naraku was also very motivated, as forging one of these items earned him 100 taels. Although Naraku was just a child now, money was still very useful to him. After all, the ninja world also had no shortage of precious materials, such as chakra metal. These all required money to purchase, and Naraku did not want to live a pitiful life like Prince Naruto. Naraku forged until late at night, but his spirits were highly excited. Because he felt that this time, he had made a big one with the shuriken. He carefully picked up the newly crafted shuriken. Shuriken C. Limited by materials, but using a B-grade forging technique and the blacksmith possessing sufficient proficiency, this weapon reached C grade. This makes the shuriken extremely sharp and difficult to destroy. But this is also its limit. Then, the system belatedly began to announce. Ding! Detected blacksmith's first successful forging of a C-grade weapon, rewarding 10 free lottery draws. Seeing the system reward, Naraku nodded in satisfaction. It was only then that Naraku, having come back to his senses, suddenly felt extremely tired, even as a ninja world superhuman with chakra. Moreover, his clothes were completely soaked, and his face was pitch black, the kind where a dark-skinned person would recognize him as a brother. Considering that there wasn't much crude iron and charcoal left in the blacksmith's room, Naraku could only leave. Naraku walked quietly by the roadside at night when suddenly, a strange sound entered his ears. The sound was like someone high on drugs, mixed with distorted gasps and occasional meows. Naraku stopped, looking around, trying to find the source of the sound. The cold night wind howled, rustling the leaves, but the eerie sound became clearer in the silence. His heart began to pound, and a sense of unease welled up in him. The sound seemed to be getting closer, as if coming from a dark corner nearby. Naraku, however, did not see anyone. Naraku thought, I haven't come to a Cthulhu version of the I Legend, have I? Even with a system, I might not be able to handle this. It wasn't until Naraku cautiously approached that he discovered Ninja Cat Hideyoshi was high on the catnip he had given him. He had completely abandoned the 3 ninja prohibitions. Naraku looked at Hideyoshi's completely unguarded posture, then thought of the usual arrogance of ninja cats, and decided to teach him a harsh lesson, going straight up to pet him to his heart's content. After petting him, he ran back home. Upon arriving home, Naraku immediately began bathing, changing clothes, and meditating with incense, approaching the upcoming lottery with an extremely devout attitude. He had accumulated 11 lottery chances and was waiting to have a big night tonight. However, despite all the elaborate preparations, Naraku still felt a little nervous. After all, in his previous life, all his lottery draws were truly unlucky. He was even known as the legendary, guaranteed pull immortal, by his companions. He wasn't sure if his cursed unlucky fate would change in this new world. System, start the lottery. Naraku thought it over and decided to do a single draw first, as single draws often produced miracles in the lottery world. Drawing now. Naraku looked at the small white and gold sections on the wheel, silently praying. This time, the wheel actually moved slowly to the white section. Mineral water bottle *1. As these cold words appeared before Naraku, he felt a sense of defeat. This incident also indirectly proved that his unlucky streak had followed him to the ninja world. Now he could choose to calm down, but he was still going to try again. Anyway, there were many high-quality materials in the ninja world, and he wouldn't fail to gain reputation later. But if he could draw something good now, he could quickly create a B-grade weapon. 10 consecutive draws. Start. Can *1. Cola *10. Milk *1 box. Blue Otsutsuki Kagaya's panties. Green food processing technology. Sunflower seeds 10 kilograms. 8 treasure porridge *1 box. Iced tea *1 box. Green scarlet sand iron and scarlet ore *10 portions. Blue dangerous species flying mantis corpse *1 portion. Naraku was immediately attracted by the flying mantis corpse. With the subordinate tool forging technique, he knew that this material was essential for crafting Kiri no Ikimonji. Now he had just gathered all the materials for Kiri no Ikimonji. And since it was an entire corpse, there might even be some scraps left over to craft other things. As for the green quality, scarlet sand iron, and scarlet ore, as Naraku's attention shifted, the specific information for these materials appeared. Scarlet sand iron, and scarlet ore, these are crucial materials for the Nichiren swords used by the Demon Slayer Core swordsmen in the Demon Slayer Core world. The material has the property of absorbing sunlight and changes color according to the user's attribute. Naraku had a bold idea. If he combined this material with chakra metal, he might be able to further strengthen the ninja sword. Even if it didn't strengthen it, it would at least give the ninja sword a skin. Who wouldn't want a cool ninja sword? It definitely had potential. The specific information for the other green quality, special ingredient processing technique, was a technique for processing special ingredients. Although the explanation was very simple, Naraku felt that this technique should have a great use. So Naraku quickly absorbed the information. 1 minute later, Naraku slowly opened his eyes. He was very satisfied with the technique. It mainly processed some relatively special biological or plant ingredients, turning inedible things into edible ones, and also providing certain benefits to the body after consumption. Naraku also remembered the biological materials that currently restricted him. Both ingredient processing and subordinate tool crafting required biological materials. As for the biological materials in the ninja world, Naraku was a bit hesitant to mess with them, as many creatures in the ninja world were intelligent, even forming clans. For example, the 3 great sage grounds. Naraku suspected that if he used toads for forging today, the 3 great sage grounds would attack tomorrow. But Naraku suddenly thought of people, such as the first Hokage's cells that ran through Naruto. Wouldn't it be amazing to make biological armor with that stuff? Gradually, Naraku's mind opened up, and he considered some of the better biological materials in the Naruto world, such as the Uchiha clan's Sharingan, the Hyuga clan's Byakugan, and the Kagaya clan's bones. There were even various tailed beasts. And Samahata, which was forged from some unknown creature and could devour large amounts of tailed beast chakra at once. Naraku reined in his scattered thoughts and praised his own intelligence. As for the remaining melon seeds, cola, iced tea, and the like, Naraku declared that he would be a mobile convenience store in the future. And what about Otsutsuki Kagaya's original panties? How dare they call it blue quality? What use are these panties? I, Naraku, am ashamed to be associated with this vulgar system. However, Naraku still planned to take a critical look at what was so special about this thing when he had time. In short, Naraku looked at the color markings above and roughly understood that with his current status as a junior member of the system, white meant, "Thank you for your patronage," gray was for ordinary items, green should be C rank, blue was B rank, and gold should be A rank. As for higher tier items, he might have to wait for the system to upgrade. Furthermore, Naraku suddenly thought of something. He had a system space, but it was full of system items. Could he put other items in it? So Naraku began to try it out and found that the system indeed had an idle space for storing items. After several attempts, Naraku discovered that this remaining system space was at least 10 cubic meters. Naraku once again admired his harvest from this time, then went to sleep contentedly. Although this time was pretty much a guaranteed minimum, for a non-European, it was still extremely precious. Wake up, wake up, Uchiha Makoto shook Naraku awake. What is it, Makoto? Naraku woke up groggily. Uchiha Makoto was a little miffed, her small face puffed out. Today is the day for school. You absolutely have to go to the first class of the semester. Listening to Uchiha Makoto, Naraku felt utterly speechless. In his previous life, he had studied hard for 20 years before entering society, and now he had to go to school after transmigrating. Naraku thought about the ridiculously early enrollment time and casually asked Uchiha Makoto, "What year is it in Konoha?" Uchiha Makoto thought for a while and informed Naraku that it was currently Konoha year 35. Naraku asked again, "Then what grade am I in at the Ninja Academy now?" Upon hearing Naraku ask this question, even Uchiha Makoto, with her temperament, felt like she wanted to explode. But she once again suppressed the anger in her heart and said, "You should be in your third year of the Ninja Academy now." Hearing this answer, Naraku began to recall. If he remembered correctly, the second grade ninja war started in year 36 and lasted until Konoha year 40. The Konoha Ninja Academy generally had a 6-year system, and the enrollment age was usually around 5 to 6 years old. However, during wartime, it would be shortened to 4 to 5 years, or even earlier graduation, and the enrollment age would also be lowered. But for Naraku, as long as he safely completed the 6-year system, that would be Konoha year 39. After graduation, if he had the chance, it would be best to spend a year becoming a chunin. He would then perfectly avoid the second great ninja war. And according to the situation of the second great ninja war, there should be no danger within Konoha. However, Uchiha Makoto was 3 years older than Naraku, so she might very well go to the battlefield. Naraku could only take things one step at a time. Later, Naraku went to the Ninja Academy with Uchiha Makoto. Due to the new grade, there were some changes in personnel, so as usual, there was a self-introduction. I am Minato Namikaze. I like reading and good food, and I hate wasting good food. I want to become Hokage in the future. The little blonde boy finished speaking and smiled warmly at everyone. Naraku watched the little blonde boy's self-introduction on stage, raising an eyebrow. Isn't this Minato? Just then, several girls below the stage also started to stir, excitedly shouting, "He's so handsome." Naraku was also quite speechless about these precocious girls. Minato Namikaze, as one of the few honest people in the original story, Naraku decided to spend more time with him when he had the chance. My name is Hyuga Miyabi. I like flowers, hate bugs, and haven't decided what I want to be in the future. Naraku looked at the cute little Byakugan loli with interest. Of course, although this little loli was also very cute, Naraku was not a loli-con. He was just a little interested in her Byakugan. Naraku guessed that this little loli was probably from the branch family and already had the caged bird seal on her. My name is Uchiha Keita. I like Big Brother Fugaku the most. I hate that stinky Naraku. I want to become Big Brother Fugaku's strongest subordinate in the future. The spiky-haired Uchiha brat said aggressively to Naraku. However, Naraku had no interest in playing with little kids and didn't pay attention to his gaze. My name is Uchiha Naraku. I like forging weapons, hate mischievous brats, and want to become the strongest blacksmith in the ninja world in the future. Naraku went up and finished his introduction, then gave a fake smile to the audience. This time, the several infatuated girls below the stage started to stir again, saying things like, "I like him so much." To this, Naraku could only pout. "I am the man you cannot have. You hateful Uchiha Naraku. You're a brat yourself." Uchiha Keita angrily came forward to claim the identity of a brat. Meanwhile, Sarutobi Haruma, the teacher next to him, became interested in Uchiha Naraku. And Uchiha actually took a liking to forging. "My name is Uzumaki Kushina. I like eating pomelos and fish. I hate arrogant people. In the future, I want to be the Hokage's woman." Naraku smiled slightly. Uzumaki Kushina did indeed become the Hokage's woman in the future. Where the leaves of Konoha dance, fire will burn bright. The firelight will continue to illuminate the village, and new leaves will sprout. Hiruzen Sarutobi continued his usual opening speech for the academy. Some of the little brats below looked at Hiruzen Sarutobi with admiration. Naraku, with a, "Since I'm here, I might as well listen," attitude, listened for a while. His conclusion was that it was all idealistic thinking. However, it completely avoided how to strive or how to ensure fairness. Naraku found such boring things uninteresting. If he had known it would be like this, he would have just gone to blacksmith or cultivate. But Naraku was afraid of being noticed by Hiruzen Sarutobi, so he couldn't just leave. He could only stand there, his mind wandering. Soon it was afternoon, and finally, outdoor classes began. The 3 basic ninjutsu, transformation jutsu, substitution jutsu, and clone jutsu are the key ninjutsu for the academy's graduation exam. Transformation jutsu. It is the temporary alteration of an object by chakra. The easiest to change is, of course, one's own body. Its essence is transformation. Clone jutsu. It creates controllable ethereal clones, not physical entities, meaning they are holographic projections made of chakra. Its essence is creation. Substitution jutsu. It's the distortion of consciousness, which is the basis of genjutsu. Its essence is illusion. Sarutobi Haruma meticulously explained the definitions of the 3 basic ninjutsu. Naraku had already learned the knowledge Sarutobi Haruma was explaining. Naraku took this opportunity to seriously consider his future, or rather, how to quickly become stronger in the short term. Although he hadn't said much before, he didn't want to be ganged up on by a bunch of brats in his eyes again. Moreover, in the ninja world, if you don't have some strength, you might accidentally get killed. Of course, Jonin and the like aren't immortal, but the probability of dying is much lower. Naraku thought for a moment. First, there was his golden finger, the Undead Legion. This should be a talent that could quickly enhance his personal strength. Although Naraku wasn't sure how much strength a Jonin could ultimately exert if they joined the Undead Legion. But compared to basic ninjutsu and taijutsu training, as well as precise chakra control, it should be much faster. Of course, the basic training mentioned above, and even some actual combat, could not be neglected. The ninja world was not lacking in combat geniuses who, despite having insufficient panel abilities, could defeat stronger opponents. Of course, it was even less lacking in those with high scores but low capabilities. For example, Danzo Shimura's audacious move of slashing Susanoo with a kunai. Others use Izanagi for a counter kill, but he used Izanagi as a revive token, which was utterly foolish. Naraku refocused his thoughts. He thought of Konoha Year 36. The Land of Fire's Konohagakure forces, led by Hiruzen Sarutobi's 3 disciples, and the Land of Wind's Sunagakure forces, led by Grandmother Chiyo, along with the Land of Earth's Iwagakure forces, would engage in a chaotic battle in the Land of Rain, at the 3-way border. At that time, many people would surely die, and that would be his opportunity. The only thing worth agonizing over now was whether White Fang would participate in the war. If White Fang participated, with his cage-level swordsmanship, the quantity and quality of his kills would likely be stronger than any of the Sannin. But Naraku was still very covetous of Princess Tsunade's Senju clan talent. If he was lucky enough to draw the Senju clan bloodline, it could be said to be a huge boost to Naraku's strength. After much thought, Naraku decided to have it all. He planned to first forge Kiri no Ikimanji or another B-rank weapon and give it to White Fang. Later, with enough reputation points, he would get materials through draws to forge other items for other strong individuals. Thinking of this, Naraku now had a good plan for the future. So, Naraku diligently trained in basic ninjutsu and basic taijutsu. He executed every movement meticulously, as if pouring all his energy into it. Not only that, Naraku also proactively invited Minato Namikaze to train with him. Minato Namikaze was a bit surprised by Uchiha Naraku, a clan ninja, showing him goodwill. Mainly because although Uchiha Naraku wasn't as arrogant as other Uchiha before, he also didn't really like making friends. After all, Minato Namikaze was just a child now, and with Uchiha Naraku's high-level sincerity. And mainly because Naraku could always come up with some seemingly fresh and unconventional but philosophical insights or ideas, their relationship warmed up considerably. After school, Naraku rushed home but didn't go directly to the forging room. Instead, he started rummaging through boxes and cabinets, because he wanted to learn a jutsu. Although his Jonin father had died, he still left behind some ninjutsu. Naraku looked at the several ninjutsu scrolls in front of him, which were Fire Release, Great Fireball Technique, Fire Release, Phoenix Sage Fire Technique, Fire Release, Great Dragon Fire Technique, Uchiha Style Kenjutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Seeing Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naraku's eyes lit up. This was a jutsu with great potential. So he started practicing diligently, as it concerned whether he would have to attend classes later. However, Uchiha Naraku then faced difficulties. He didn't know if it was due to insufficient chakra, or insufficient chakra control, or because Shadow Clone Jutsu was B rank and thus more difficult. Naraku practiced for a long time but couldn't grasp the knack. So Naraku called out to the system, asking if it could give him a specific panel to help him visually see his personal combat situation. This time, the system actually had such a panel, it just hadn't been needed before. System member level, beginner. Name, Uchiha Naraku. Age, 8 years old, 80 years old. Chakra nature, fire, yin, yang. Yang nature can be acquired through postnatal training. Uchiha Sarada as an example. There are also 2 other Uchiha with yang nature. Uchiha Madara has yang nature, Uchiha Itachi has yang nature. Moreover, the Uchiha clan doesn't always intermarry within the clan, so it's normal for 1 or 2 individuals to inherit their parents' yang nature chakra. Sharingan, unawakened, stamina, C, spirit, C+, chakra, 0.2 Kaka, the chakra volume of Jonin Kakashi in Naruto Part 1. Regarding the protagonist chakra, I specifically looked it up. Uchiha Sasuke, as a young genius of the Uchiha clan, when he first graduated, Kakashi stated that he could use Chidori 4 times, while Sasuke could use it twice. Additionally, Kakashi is the creator of the ninjutsu, and his chakra utilization rate for using Chidori is definitely higher than Sasuke's. Think of Naruto using a massive amount of chakra only to summon tadpoles. So, Sasuke's conservative estimate is 0.5 Kaka or more. And Kakashi in Part 1 was indeed not that strong. Before teaching Sasuke Chidori, Kakashi himself mentioned this problem during his rock climbing training. I didn't think I would find climbing a cliff so strenuous, my body has become sluggish. Chakra control ability, poor. Ninjutsu, Clone Jutsu beginner, Transformation Jutsu beginner, Substitution Jutsu beginner, Fire Release, Great Fireball Technique beginner. Taijutsu, Uchiha Style Taijutsu beginner. Genjutsu, none. Evaluation, your combat power in the Ninja Academy is at most upper middle tier. Looking at his panel, Naraku realized that his conventional chakra nature was only fire. His chakra volume was only 0.2 Kaka, which was simply an embarrassment for a transmigrator. However, chakra is generally linked to physique and spirit, and as he grows, his chakra will most likely surpass Kakashi's. Then there was his poor chakra control ability. Naraku finally understood why he couldn't learn Shadow Clone Jutsu in a short time. His chakra volume was not high, and his chakra control ability was poor. These 2 factors combined made a B-rank ninjutsu seem unattainable to him. However, Naraku believed he should be able to learn it within a week. After understanding his shortcomings, Naraku put aside his training for the time being. He planned to practice chakra control during his daytime classes later. From now on, he planned to train during the day and forge at night. Considering the previous shortage of pig iron and the chakra metal that might be needed for forging B-rank weapons later, Naraku went directly to find Cat Granny. Naraku looked at Hideyoshi, who was standing by the roadside seemingly questioning his life, no, cat life, and happily greeted him. Hideyoshi, what's wrong? Hideyoshi numbly said to Naraku, yesterday, after I inhaled the catnip you gave me, I lay down by the roadside. I have to say, your stuff is really pure, meow. Hideyoshi even gave Naraku an approving look. Later, I felt like someone was touching me, and their movements were very rough. At this moment, Naraku seemed to see a hint of shyness on Hideyoshi's cat face. As a result, that scoundrel actually stroked off my proud intelligent fur, meow. Naraku suddenly felt a bit awkward and could only CPU Hideyoshi, saying that the reason he was secretly touched was because he didn't abide by the Ninja 3 prohibitions. Even a ninja cat should abide by the Ninja 3 prohibitions. Moreover, him shamelessly lying by the roadside was just enticing others to make mistakes. Hideyoshi then began to quibble, catnip isn't alcohol, so it doesn't count. Cats are poor. Seeing Hideyoshi still trying to explain himself, Naraku directly told him to lead the way to Cat Granny. Cat Granny, here are the shurikens I forged before. This shuriken, in particular, is very good, you know. Listening to Naraku's confident words, Cat Granny was a little surprised. She had originally thought this kid was just going to dabble in forging as a hobby. She had even prepared to return the rent to him after a while, but she didn't expect that, hearing what this kid said, he actually forged them. Cat Granny looked at the dozen or so shurikens in front of her and found that each one was a masterpiece. Especially one shuriken with a "Na" logo seemed to have broken through the limits of conventional shurikens, exhibiting a level of sharpness even higher than the other exquisite shurikens. Soon, the notification gained recognition from Cat Granny, blacksmith reputation +1 appeared on the system panel. Naraku felt a surge of exhilaration, but to avoid affecting his daily life and combat, he still chose to mute notifications. At this moment, Cat Granny finally recovered from her shock. After she reconfirmed that these were indeed forged by Naraku himself, she gave Naraku an extremely high evaluation, as long as you don't die prematurely. You will definitely become a great blacksmith famous throughout the ninja world in the future. Naraku accepted Cat Granny's evaluation with peace of mind. Little Naraku, these shurikens are 200 taels each for the regular ones, and 1,000 taels each for the exquisite one. What do you think? Cat Granny asked Naraku for his opinion. Naraku found the price of the shurikens much higher than he had expected, so he agreed, okay, Cat Granny, I agree. But you have to do some promotion for me, especially for the exquisite shuriken. You have to tell people that I forged them. Although Cat Granny felt that having a great reputation might bring some danger to Naraku, considering that the ninja world generally would not kill blacksmiths, and there were no records of infiltration within Konoha, she agreed. Naraku continued, Cat Granny, I want to forge a better weapon to see what my current limit is. Can I buy some chakra metal from you? Cat Granny held up one finger. Naraku guessed, 100,000 taels. Cat Granny shook her head and said, 500 grams of raw chakra metal costs 1 million taels. 1 million taels for a raw product. Who knows how much chakra metal could be refined from it then? Naraku suddenly felt like an emperor whose grand endeavor had collapsed midway. He knew this stuff was expensive, but he didn't expect it to be this expensive. He had originally planned to use chakra metal combined with materials of green rank or higher to create new weapons. Now, it seemed he could only use it as an embellishment or to form patterns within the weapon. The more critical problem was that he didn't have 1 million taels at all. Seemingly seeing Naraku's predicament, Cat Granny decided to make an investment. Then I'll give you a piece of chakra metal first, and you can forge weapons for me later. For regular weapons, I'll pay double the market price, and for exquisite ones, I'll pay 10 times. How does that sound? If there's anything else later, we can continue to discuss it. Naraku naturally agreed readily to Cat Granny's terms. He later purchased some pig iron from Cat Granny. He could have bought iron ore, but forging pig iron was too time-consuming. After finishing all this, Naraku returned home under the moonlight. A week passed in a flash. During this week, Naraku, besides daily forging and attending school, was frantically practicing shadow clone jutsu. One day, Cat Granny found Naraku. Little Naraku, the weapons you forged are really successful. Now, these weapons with the "Na" logo are somewhat sought after in a small area of the market. After all, these are all masterpieces. Naraku just felt it was deserved, because with his increased proficiency, almost every shuriken, senbon, and other weapons Naraku forged were now masterpieces. Cat Granny continued, Little Naraku, can you now forge some other weapons? Like Fuma shuriken and ninja swords. Some people, after using the shurikens you forged, want to specially commission some weapons. Naraku was waiting for this step, as his golden finger required him to craft B-rank weapons to be effective, and he currently lacked materials and opportunities. So he earnestly said to Cat Granny, if there are such customers later, please be sure to tell me. My ambition is to become the strongest blacksmith in the ninja world. So I've long wanted to forge some stronger ninja swords. Cat Granny thought for a moment. If you plan to go down the path of custom exquisite weapons, then you can open a shop, and in that shop, you can sell your own exquisite weapons and offer custom weapon services. Naraku saw that Cat Granny, having experienced the immense profits of his weapons, was now willing to step out herself. He also didn't have time to manage a shop, so Naraku asked Cat Granny to be responsible for managing the shop, with the income split 8-2, Naraku getting 8 and Cat Granny getting 2. Cat Granny later agreed and then called out a cute girl named Shin, who looked to be in her teens. This is my goddaughter, Shin. She'll be in charge of the shop from now on. Cat Granny continued, this is little Naraku. Don't let his being a Ninja Academy student fool you, his forging skills are very high. Naraku politely nodded and then left. Because Naraku suddenly realized a problem, his weapons were popular in a small area. Didn't that mean he had gained a lot of blacksmith reputation? Naraku opened the system panel and looked at his blacksmith reputation. Blacksmith reputation, 112. Naraku's lips curved slightly. He could enjoy another draw. Returning home, Naraku once again began his customary gacha ritual. Bathing, incense burning, fasting, meditation. In Naraku's opinion, these seemingly useless rituals were indeed useless, but at least they ensured that when he hit the guaranteed minimum again, his emotions wouldn't be as turbulent. This time, as usual, he started with a single pull. Drawing lottery. Naraku had already set no limits in his heart. Years of being a non-chief had taught him that without expectation, there is no disappointment. So he silently watched the pointer spin, firm in his resolve that no matter where it landed, he would not break. But as the pointer slowly approached blue and then gradually stopped, Naraku's smile was harder to suppress than an AK. Blue Otsutsuki Keigaya's corset. What a sin. Naraku completely broke. Did this idiotic forging system have its brains in its crotch? He finally got a blue item, and it was another piece of Otsutsuki Keigaya's intimate clothing. He hadn't even had time to appreciate, research Otsutsuki Keigaya's panties last time. And now this again. Was it planning for him to collect Otsutsuki Keigaya's full set later to cosplay, and then have Black Zetsu recognize him as his mother? Naraku took some time to calm himself down. Then, in a fit of pique, he did a 10 pull. Feifei sanitary napkins *10. Super delicious taro boba milk tea *10 bottles. Crude iron *1000 kilograms. Mineral water bottle *1. Green refined iron *10 kilograms. Refined from ordinary iron ore using special techniques, possessing strong pressure and heat resistance, capable of conducting magic, a metal required for weapon crafting. Blue dangerous species water dragon beast corpse *1 set, an aquatic dangerous species from the Akame ga Kill world, which enters a berserk state when in danger. All subsequent blue-grade dangerous species are corpses, while gold-grade ones are alive. This is due to different weapon forging requirements. Boneless chicken feet 10 kilograms. Pickled cabbage fish *10 bags. AD calcium milk *1 box. Blue orichalcum *1 set, a special and precious metal from the Akame ga Kill world. This draw almost made Naraku cry, as he felt like he was possessed by a European emperor, actually getting 2 usable blue items. Moreover, he was very curious about the refined iron, as its function seemed somewhat similar to chakra metal. Naraku quickly took out the refined iron and chakra metal, then slowly injected chakra into the materials, and found that chakra metal's conductivity for chakra was slightly better than refined iron, but their difference wasn't particularly large. And according to the system panel's description, Naraku felt that the refined iron's strength would be slightly higher than chakra metal. Naraku thought to himself that with 10 kilograms of refined iron in hand, he could definitely forge a B-grade weapon. The next day, Uchiha Makoto didn't come to wake Naraku up, and when he woke up, he found that the 8 a.m. class was already over. He didn't have 8 a.m. classes before transmigration, and he still has them after transmigration. Regarding 8 a.m. classes, Naraku could only say, I'm going to my 8 a.m. class. Liu Heizu version. What's wrong with a dignified Uchiha skipping a class? Naraku prepared to go check on his shop. He was very curious who his first customer would be. Following Cat Granny's directions, Naraku quickly arrived at the shop, seeing the shop name, Ninja Cat General Store. He couldn't help but find it simple and crude. The cute young girl Shin also respectfully said when she saw Naraku, "Lord Naraku, why have you come?" Naraku said he was just coming to look around. Just as Naraku was about to look around the shop, a cheerful voice came from outside. "Miss Shin, how is the custom weapon order we discussed earlier?" Naraku looked at this person, who had a certain Naruto Uzumaki vibe, and felt a bit familiar. Shin also responded to Senju Nawaki, "Oh, it's Mr. Nawaki. This is Master Naraku, who forged those exquisite shuriken before. Would you like to chat with Lord Naraku?" Naraku was very happy when he realized this person was Nawaki, as he was one of the few relatively pure bloodline inheritors of the Senju clan in the ninja world. Nawaki looked at Naraku, who seemed a few years younger than himself, and couldn't help but feel a little disbelieving. He had originally thought the forging master would be a strong uncle or even a strong old man. However, Nawaki, being well-mannered, said, "Mr. Naraku, I would like to ask you to forge a ninja sword for me. But the style needs to be custom-made. Is that possible?" Naraku pulled Nawaki to a seat and said, "Are there any other requirements for the sword?" Nawaki said, "This is a gift for Teacher Orochimaru. Although Teacher Orochimaru already has some good swords, this sword should still be a masterpiece." Hearing this, Naraku had a plan in mind. "Oh, it's a gift for Lord Orochimaru. What if I told you I could forge a very powerful sword? Would you be interested? It might just cost a bit more." Naraku showed a kind smile as he looked at Nawaki. Nawaki, unaware that he was about to bleed heavily, asked, "How much?" "The cost price is 10 million ryo. This is my first custom weapon price, plus it's a gift for Lord Orochimaru, otherwise, it would definitely not be this cheap. And you can wait until I've forged it to decide whether to buy it," Naraku said confidently. Seeing Naraku's confidence, and the fact that he didn't even require a deposit, Nawaki could only choose to believe him. Then Nawaki handed over a blueprint, requesting that Naraku essentially follow the sword's appearance on it. Naraku took the blueprint and told Nawaki to come back in 3 days. Naraku didn't stay long in the shop afterward but went straight to the forging room without delay. Naraku now felt that his skill level should be sufficient to forge B-grade weapons, and with an opportunity to try, he naturally prepared to do so. Naraku planned to directly forge an enhanced version of Kiri no Ikimonji for Orochimaru. He thought it through carefully. White Fang's fighting style wasn't suitable for Kiri no Ikimonji's abilities. White Fang was more about powerful one-shot kills. Moreover, this one-shot kill could be achieved with just a chakra short blade. He was more suited for abilities that enhanced other aspects, and he certainly didn't lack Kiri no Ikimonji's slight bleeding ability. Orochimaru, on the other hand, had a much higher compatibility with this sword. After all, Orochimaru preferred to maneuver in combat, and if the blade also had some poison, combined with a bleeding effect, it should be very effective. It was only then that Naraku suddenly realized how ridiculous his previous idea of having the Ninja Cat clan sell equipment was. Different people are suited for different styles of weapons. Even a subordinate tool starts to suit different people, and higher grade weapons will have higher requirements for their owners. Even weapons like Mjolnir can only be wielded by a few people. If he were to sell them publicly, to the highest bidder, most likely, the things he painstakingly forged would gather dust or fall into the hands of someone not so suitable. Then he would fall into a vicious cycle. No powerful weapons, right pointing arrow, no prestige points, right pointing arrow, no way to get good materials through gacha, right pointing arrow, no way to forge powerful weapons. For Naraku, weapons were both important and not important. As long as his passive skills were maxed out, his copied talents were sufficient, his acquired skills were stronger, and there were more brothers in the Hall of Death. Even if Naraku gave away weapons for free, it wouldn't be a loss. Moreover, as long as he was strong enough, taking the weapons back wasn't impossible. So he still had to deliver the weapons to the most suitable people, instead of going for the highest bidder. However, this would also expose his ability to forge weapons, but even if he entrusted it to the Ninja Cat clan, it would still be traceable to him. Therefore, Naraku decided to gather more powerful allies and make more friends. And in the early stages, the weapons he forged were only so-so in strength. By the time he truly forged exceptionally powerful divine artifacts, presumably, he would no longer need to worry about exposure. Considering this was his first time forging a B-grade weapon, Naraku prepared to go all out. For materials, Naraku took out one set of blue orichalcum, one set of blue dangerous species flying mantis, 1 kilogram of refined iron, and 500 grams of chakra metal. For forging secret arts, he chose one of the more time-consuming secret arts from the subordinate tool forging secret arts. This secret art was also different from the secret art used to forge shuriken before. The new secret technique, compared to the previous one used for forging shuriken, was more time-consuming and difficult. It was precisely for this reason that Naraku told Nawaki to return in 3 days. Next, the arduous forging process began. On the first day, Naraku was busy in the blacksmith's workshop. He carefully placed the orichalcum and chakra metal into a high-temperature melting furnace, slowly heating them to their melting point. As the temperature rose, the two metals began to melt and fuse together, forming a powerful and sturdy hybrid substance. Next, Naraku unleashed a series of mysterious secret techniques, using mental power to guide the flow and deformation of the hybrid substance, constantly adjusting its shape and structure to ensure it would become the ideal main framework. After completing the initial shaping, Naraku picked up a sharp blade and precisely cut off the limbs of the flying mantis. These limbs were placed in special containers, meticulously refined and processed to remove useless impurities and some tissues. Through a complex process, the truly valuable components were gradually separated and purified, ultimately appearing as black, droplet-shaped substances. On the second day, Naraku concentrated fully on operating the equipment. He carefully dripped the black liquid onto the main framework, each drop like a seed containing endless energy and potential. These droplets seemed to possess their own consciousness, rapidly integrating into the framework, binding tightly with it without any sense of incongruity, as if they were naturally a part of each other. As the droplets continuously infused, the main framework began to undergo a miraculous transformation. During this process, the most crucial step was to meticulously engrave special patterns onto the main body of the material using the black liquid. These patterns were intricate, like mysterious runes or ancient incantations, each line carrying a special meaning and power. In this way, the energy within the black liquid could be stimulated to its maximum extent and perfectly fused with the main body. As Naraku engraved, sweat slowly dripped from his forehead, and after 3 hours, he finally completed the task. Afterward, Naraku took out the last required material, refined iron. However, Naraku pondered for a moment, perhaps the green grade, scarlet sand iron, and scarlet ore, had other uses for people in the ninja world. So, he also took out a portion of scarlet sand iron and scarlet ore to melt. Then, Naraku fused the melted scarlet sand iron, scarlet ore, and refined iron together, covering the previous main framework with it, and then supplementing it with secret techniques. Finally, the thick body of the sword was formed. The third day. By the third day, Naraku was utterly exhausted, looking at the sword in his hand as if it were in peerless beauty. His energy seemed to have been siphoned away by this sword. However, Naraku calmed himself down and began the final forging work, and the sword gradually took on a clear shape through repeated hammering. Of course, during this process, Naraku did not forget to add a unique logo. It wasn't very obvious now, but in the future, weapons with this logo would definitely be highly sought after. Afterward, he used the previous scraps to create a scabbard that was suitable for this sword. At this moment, Naraku looked at the treasured sword in his hand. Unlike the common katana seen in Japanese anime, this sword was double-edged. Without chakra infused, the whole thing appeared pitch black and unremarkable. Only the user and the enemy would discover the true power of this sword. Ding! Congratulations, blacksmith, for forging a B-grade weapon. Reward: 100 gacha draws. Naraku then appraised the sword in his hand. Kiri no Ikimanji, Special Edition. This sword is imbued with the blacksmith's dedication and uses a large amount of precious materials, orichalcum, chakra metal, dangerous species, scarlet sand iron, scarlet ore, refined iron. Multiple subordinate tool secret techniques were used during the forging process. It took 3 days to forge. It ultimately reached a level far surpassing the original weapon. This sword is double-edged, 1.2 meters long, possesses sturdy and sharp characteristics and can smoothly conduct chakra. Skills. 1. Stores a certain amount of yang chakra to unleash a special powerful strike against the enemy. 2. Any wound inflicted by the Kiri no Ikimonji cannot heal. Even a graze will result in a persistent, bleeding wound that cannot be cured. Physical suturing and sealing for at least 1 week are required to stop the bleeding. Using advanced medical ninjutsu can reduce the bleeding time. Otherwise, the victim will bleed to death. Looking at the first skill of this blade, storing yang attribute chakra, Naraku knew he had made the right gamble. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. At this moment, Naraku, looking at his newly forged blade, immediately transformed into one of the Uchiha's 4 maniacal laughers. This blade was his stepping stone to the pinnacle of the ninja world. After taking care of his personal hygiene, Naraku brought the Kiri no Ikimonji special edition to the Cat General Store. Nawaki was already waiting at the general store. Mr. Nawaki, this is the sword you requested, Naraku said, handing the Kiri no Ikimonji special edition in his hand to Nawaki. Nawaki slowly unsheathed the sword. Although it looked unremarkable and tough, appearing black, Nawaki sensed a hint of its sharpness. This sword is not as simple as it appears on the surface. Let's find a training ground, Naraku slowly said. Nawaki then led Naraku to the training ground. Naraku looked at Uncle Snake in front of him and felt numb. Do you all call the gift recipient to try it out before giving gifts? Don't you need a little mystery? However, considering that Uncle Snake hadn't turned evil yet, and he himself was a dignified Uchiha member, there shouldn't be any problems, right? Probably. Naraku could only brace himself and go up to greet him. Hello, Lord Orochimaru. Orochimaru also smiled and said, you know me. I've only heard that the third Hokage's 3 disciples are all top-notch ninja geniuses, especially you, Lord Orochimaru. Naraku immediately flattered him. You're also not simple. At such a young age, you can forge such an excellent sword. Orochimaru returned a polite compliment. Then, Naraku explained the unique features of the weapon. Besides the common characteristics of toughness and sharpness, this blade also has 2 skills. Both were very curious, secretly guessing if they were like the ninja sword skills of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Yes, firstly, it can store a certain amount of yang chakra to unleash a special powerful strike against the enemy. Secondly, any wound inflicted by the Kiri no Ikimonji cannot heal. Even a graze will result in a persistent, bleeding wound that cannot be cured, Naraku said confidently. As a researcher, Orochimaru immediately pinpointed the crucial issue: cannot heal. It's not that it can't be healed at all, it's just that to heal it, you must disengage from combat and use physical stitches, sealing it for at least a week to stop the bleeding. Of course, using advanced medical ninjutsu can reduce the bleeding time, Naraku said with an embarrassed smile. Nawaki, unable to contain his curiosity, asked, doesn't that mean if you wound an enemy and keep fighting, you can directly kill them just by the passive bleeding? You could say that, but it's not easy for a ninja to keep a strong enemy engaged in combat without letting him escape, Nawaki. However, in certain special situations, such as on the battlefield, or with the help of comrades, this goal can be achieved, Teacher Orochimaru said, not forgetting to instruct Nawaki. Naraku also didn't want to say much more. In truth, even he didn't know the specifics of this weapon very well, so he wanted to see its actual combat effectiveness. Simply put, Naraku felt bored and wanted to see blood flow like a river. So, at Naraku's signal, Teacher Orochimaru and his student prepared to test the sword Naraku was so confident in. Naraku, meanwhile, observed the sword's combat data from the side. Teacher Orochimaru, you need to be careful. I haven't tested this sword either, Nawaki reminded Teacher Orochimaru. Teacher Orochimaru replied, Nawaki, your worries are unnecessary. Don't you have confidence in your teacher's strength? Naraku felt it was completely unnecessary, thinking that even if Konoha exploded, Teacher Orochimaru would be fine. If only one person could survive in all of Konoha, it would definitely be Teacher Orochimaru. Teacher Orochimaru truly had max survival ability. Afterward, Teacher Orochimaru and Nawaki formed a confrontation seal, and the two began to fight. Since the main purpose was to test the sword, Teacher Orochimaru did not initiate an attack. Instead, he waited for Nawaki to attack. When Nawaki infused water release chakra into Kiri no Ikimonji, the entire sword turned blue. The sword's appearance also significantly improved. The color changed. Is it related to the chakra nature? Does this have any special use? Teacher Orochimaru also observed. Naoki was also very surprised by the color and loved the sword even more. Unfortunately, he wasn't primarily a sword-wielding ninja, so he thought to himself that he would ask Master Naraku to forge a suitable weapon for him later. Then, Naoki and Teacher Orochimaru began a sword-fighting duel. Teacher Orochimaru also took out his own sword at this time. Of course, this sword duel was entirely Teacher Orochimaru going easy on Naoki. Naoki had just graduated from the Ninja Academy, and his strength was close to Chunin, at most a Chunin. He was no match for Teacher Orochimaru, whose strength at this time already surpassed that of an elite Jonin. After a few clashes, Teacher Orochimaru found that in terms of toughness and sharpness, the sword in Naoki's hand was in no way inferior to his own treasured sword. Moreover, because the sword in Naoki's hand was imbued with chakra, its overall attack range even increased slightly. Naoki then seized the opportunity, unleashing the yang-release chakra he had secretly infused into Kiri no Ikimonji earlier. Suddenly, an irresistible force transmitted from Naoki's sword. It directly shocked Teacher Orochimaru's sword out of his hand, a power that greatly surprised Teacher Orochimaru. It should be known that there were several levels of difference in strength between him and Naoki. Although Naoki was from the Senju clan and would be stronger, that strike just now was indeed quite powerful. Naoki then took the chance to slash at Teacher Orochimaru's chest. In fact, Teacher Orochimaru could have easily dodged this sword, even without a weapon in his hand. However, Teacher Orochimaru wanted to test the sword's second ability, so he accepted the blow without much defense. Naoki, seeing that he had wounded his teacher, was very anxious and immediately stopped the fight. Ding! Senju Naoki has become the temporary owner of the weapon, and has initially used Kiri no Ikimonji. Talent copy activated. Blacksmith chakra increased by 1 unit. Naraku, who was nearby, immediately gained 1 unit of chakra, which was quite exhilarating. Teacher, are you alright? I'll go find my sister now, Naoki said, concerned for Teacher Orochimaru. Teacher Orochimaru, much calmer, said, no need, wait for me a moment. Teacher Orochimaru began to try using chakra to seal the wound and some other conventional hemostatic methods, but found that there seemed to be a mysterious force at the wound that rendered his conventional methods ineffective. The more Teacher Orochimaru experimented, the more interesting he found it. Seeing that the blood on his teacher's chest simply wouldn't stop, Naoki was also somewhat flustered by his concern. Teacher Orochimaru saw that Naoki was already preparing to call Tsunade. Teacher Orochimaru could only immediately stop the experiment. Teacher Orochimaru thought for a moment and realized that the sword's power mainly affected the skin. He then thought of a snake shedding its skin. Perhaps he needed to develop a technique similar to a snake shedding its skin, which could avoid some continuous damage from enemies' relentless attacks, such as fire release or the current sword wound. Teacher Orochimaru tried to harden and shed the surface skin of the chest wound, but it was very slow. Eventually, the skin around Teacher Orochimaru's wound completely hardened and scabbed over, but it did not shed. It was foreseeable that he shouldn't engage in high-intensity combat for a while, and it would heal after a period of time. Naraku never dreamed that the appearance of Kiri no Ikimonji would make Teacher Orochimaru prematurely develop the idea of creating the snake-shedding jutsu. Seeing Teacher Orochimaru no longer bleeding, Naoki breathed a sigh of relief. Naraku also walked over and said to Teacher Orochimaru and Naoki, how is it? How's this sword? Is 10 million ryo worth it? Mr. Naraku is truly a great talent. After trying this sword, I feel that it is truly stronger than many ninja swords among the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. 10 million ryo is completely insufficient to match the value of this sword, Teacher Orochimaru said, showing great respect for talent. Yes, Naoki also became a repeater. In fact, Teacher Orochimaru was more curious about how this sword was forged, but forging techniques were somewhat like the secret techniques of those secret clans, which absolutely could not be passed on. So, Teacher Orochimaru didn't ask. Naraku, facing their praise, calmly said, Lord Orochimaru, you can just call me Naraku. As for the value of this sword, I believe it can only be realized in the right hands. If possible, just use this sword to kill more enemies. In other aspects, I hope you can help promote it if you have the chance. Teacher Orochimaru listened to Naraku's words. The first part, killing more enemies was naturally expected. If he had a good weapon, he would definitely use it. But the latter part, promoting it more, made teacher Orochimaru feel a slight unease. After all, some people in the ninja world were not very pleasant. Taking by force was exactly what they did. Teacher Orochimaru confirmed again, "Are you sure, Naraku?" Naraku naturally wasn't too afraid. After all, given the current situation, his most painful scenario would merely be being forced to hand over the subordinate tool forging method and being locked in a small dark room to forge. This was the worst case scenario, and even if he were locked in a small dark room, he could become stronger faster this way. He would make his enemies regret locking up a monster. Naraku firmly said, "I want to become the strongest blacksmith in the ninja world. This is a necessary step for me." Seeing Naraku's resolute answer, teacher Orochimaru also seriously agreed and promised to protect him within his capabilities. Naoki also expressed his support from the side. Naraku looked at the support of these two people in front of him and felt that he could do something big. Considering the 100 lottery opportunities he had, Naraku was ready to go big and forge more weapons. And Naraku naturally wouldn't give up on this Senju bloodline in front of him. Naraku recalled the plot. This year was Konoha year 35. If nothing unexpected happened, Naoki would be comically blown to death by explosive tags next year, even under Orochimaru's nose. Naraku wasn't sure if there was any trickery involved. If one didn't have a protagonist's fate, being blown to death by explosive tags wasn't strange. However, the reality was that the overt heirs of the Senju clan were continuously decreasing. Naoki died, and Tsunade never dated again after her partner's death, remaining single even during the Boruto era. Many of the remaining members integrated into the village. Later, a group of people with Senju blood went to participate in Orochimaru's experiments, hoping to awaken wood release, but every single participant died. Only an infant from another clan succeeded, but could only manage landscaping. This couldn't help but make Naraku's thoughts wander. However, now that Uchiha Naraku had arrived, the Konoha village would be peaceful. With Naraku here, Naoki absolutely couldn't die anytime soon. Even Jesus couldn't take him away. Naraku said it. He was definitely going to fleece him. And Tsunade shouldn't fall in love with Kato-dan. That guy might be handsome, but he clearly looked like he'd have a short life. To put it bluntly, he couldn't control her, only Uchiha Naraku could control Princess Tsunade. At that time, they'd have 10 or 20 children, and each would be equipped with good weapons. Let's see who could still plot against the Senju clan. It was just that Senju Tobarama wasn't around. Otherwise, even if his brain was smashed, he probably couldn't imagine that the evil Uchiha brat, in his words, would be willing to go to such lengths for the continuation of the Senju clan. Of course, it's also possible that upon seeing such a shameless Uchiha Naraku, he would directly use the Flying Thunder God technique to slice Uchiha Naraku into 1,000 pieces. Naraku directly told Naoki, "You are my first custom client. Get your money ready. Of course, you can also provide me with any good biological materials or metals. I will forge a weapon suitable for you." Naoki happily agreed. Orochimaru's heart itched, hearing Naraku talk about biological materials, as he specialized in biology. Orochimaru secretly guessed whether this weapon incorporated a biological organ or limb into the weapon, but how could biological materials be combined with different metals? Orochimaru decided to go back and see what was special about this sword. Upon returning home, Naraku saw an angry Uchiha Makoto. "Naraku, where have you been? You haven't been to the Ninja Academy for 3 days, and your teacher Sarutobi Haruma was about to come to the Uchiha clan to find you." Naraku then told her about recent events, omitting some parts. When Makoto heard Naraku say that he had forged a ninja sword comparable to the weapons of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, she couldn't hold back. "Naraku, how could you so easily sell such a precious weapon? If you needed money, the clan could have bought it." Hearing Uchiha Makoto's words, Naraku felt a bit helpless. This Konoha village was brainwashed by the will of fire from the front and by clan honor from behind. It seemed he needed to spend more time broadening Uchiha Makoto's horizons. Of course, he also knew that Uchiha Makoto was doing it for his own good. After all, selling such a precious weapon easily might displease some people in the clan, but Naraku didn't care about that. The current Uchiha clan was overly timid yet overly arrogant. This magnanimity was not worth his excessive devotion. However, he still planned to forge some weapons for the clan later. He wouldn't abandon the bloodline power of the Uchiha, and he was currently living under the protection of the family. Naraku said to Uchiha Makoto, "The clan, I will not forget it. There will be some later, but they might not necessarily appreciate my weapons right now." After all, some Uchiha were so arrogant that they thought having the Sharingan was enough, and everything else was useless. Hiruzen Sarutobi was sitting in his Hokage office chair, flipping through documents with his left hand and holding a dry pipe with his right. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed as the door was violently thrown open. Hiruzen Sarutobi didn't even look up, already knowing who had arrived. "Hiruzen, I want someone from you." The newcomer was Danzo Shimura, his tone firm and unyielding. Hiruzen Sarutobi slowly raised his head, exhaled a puff of smoke, and calmly asked, "Who is it?" Danzo replied without hesitation, "Uchiha Naraku." Hearing that name, Hiruzen Sarutobi's eyes grew serious, and he immediately refused. "No. He is the Konoha village's best blacksmith for the future. The dark environment of the root is not suitable for him, he needs a sunny environment to grow. Moreover, he is still just a ninja academy student. Letting him join your root is absolutely impossible." Danzo revealed an expression that showed he expected this. He sneered and said, "Hiruzen, so you already know about this person? Then I must have a good talk with you. He is an Uchiha. If he can truly continuously forge top-tier weapons like Kiri no Ikimonji. Are you sure you can control the Uchiha?" Hiruzen Sarutobi seemed angry as he said, "The Uchiha is a member of the village. I won't allow you to speak of them like that. Naraku is a good child and won't forget the village. Didn't he give his first weapon to Orochimaru?" Danzo stared intently at Hiruzen Sarutobi, feeling how hypocritical Hiruzen Sarutobi's face was at that moment. Despite his inner fury, Danzo suppressed his anger and said, "If the Uchiha clan produces 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, and all of them possess the Sharingan, can you keep them in check? You know, they have always yearned for a clan leader who becomes Hokage. Or are you willing to pass the Hokage position to the Uchiha clan?" Hiruzen Sarutobi's temper also flared instantly, and he roared furiously, "I reiterate, the Uchiha clan is a part of the village, and Uchiha Naraku is also an indispensable member of the village. I will absolutely not agree to let him join your shady root." Danzo responded coldly, "Hiruzen, you will regret this." Hiruzen Sarutobi also responded seriously, "I am the Hokage." Hearing this, Danzo slammed the door shut and left without looking back. Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed helplessly. In truth, he was well aware of the potential crisis the Uchiha clan could cause. However, still in his prime, he had enough confidence in himself, firmly believing that he could successfully suppress the Uchiha clan. And he planned to approach Uchiha Naraku, to see if this child possessed the will of fire. Naraku finally managed to coax Makoto away after much persuasion. He now had 100 chances to draw, a wealth Naraku had never experienced before. According to Naraku's guess, there should be a guaranteed gold item in this draw, as 10 draws guarantee a blue item. Surely 100 draws would guarantee a gold item. Sharpening the axe doesn't delay chopping wood, so Naraku piously performed his usual 4-step ritual. System, let's do a 10 draw first to see the situation. Ding, drawing now, facial cleanser *10. Candy *1 box. Green Hulk's underpants. Fried chicken 10 kilograms. Toothpicks *1 box. Ham sausage *1 box. Green 20 meters Sea King. Sea Kings in the pirate world are extremely powerful creatures, belonging to the giant beasts. Blue orichalcum *1. Sunscreen *10. Mineral water *1 box. Naraku looked at the draw results, and a chill went through his heart. The guaranteed item fairy appeared again, followed by a pile of useless ordinary items. Naraku immediately asked the system to filter out gray items, only displaying green and above from now on. Next up was a furious 90 draws. Ding, drawing now, blue orichalcum *12. Blue dangerous species. Armored beast, earth dragon beast, poison dragon beast. Gold special dragon type dangerous species Tyrant alive, a dragon type dangerous species that lives in extremely harsh environments, with traces found in frozen tundra or deserts. Due to its powerful adaptability and vitality, its dragon cells remain active and continuously evolve even after being made into an imperial arm. Gold armor type imperial arm forging secret arts. Includes Oni Possession, Shira Incarnation Noble Chariot, Guardian Deity Mecha Supreme Throne. Green 20 meters Sea King * 13. Green Refined Iron * 100 kilograms. Naraku looked at the 13 portions of orichalcum, which meant 13 B-rank subordinate tools. And the dragon-type dangerous species Tyrant, combined with the armor Imperial Arm forging secret arts, could forge Oni Possession. Oni Possession. An armor Imperial Arm made from the ferocious dragon-type dangerous species, Tyrant. When called, sturdy armor automatically flies out, enhancing the wearer's abilities. This Imperial Arm boasts ironclad defense and is equipped with a subordinate weapon, red-backed Shrike. It places an immense burden on the wearer, ordinary people would die upon wearing it. Its hidden ability is to activate the biological characteristics of the material used, allowing for short-term transparency. If the user is skilled, they can also conceal their presence. This Imperial Arm possesses the ability to continuously evolve. Due to the characteristics of its material, it can even become immune to very special elemental attacks. Excessive use will lead to the wearer's complete dragonification. This was the male protagonist's exclusive Imperial Arm from Akame ga Kill, and due to its characteristics, it held infinite possibilities. However, Naraku checked the forging conditions and found that this Imperial Arm required at least 10 portions of orichalcum. This put Naraku in a dilemma. Should he forge a large number of subordinate tools or forge one powerful Imperial Arm to make a name for himself? After some thought, Naraku decided to forge the Imperial Arm first. The subordinate tools could be slowly produced using daily prestige points. Moreover, Oni Possession would undoubtedly be an A-rank weapon, and the system might even reward him with 1,000 draw chances. Of course, Naraku currently wasn't confident he could forge the Imperial Arm in one go, even with the Imperial Arm forging tools. So, he still needed to forge more subordinate tools to practice, preferably using blue materials combined with the Imperial Arm forging secret arts a few times. But one thing made Naraku feel very special. The system specifically noted that this dragon-type dangerous species Tyrant was alive. Naraku didn't think his strength was enough to subdue this special dangerous species. Therefore, before forging this Imperial Arm, he would need to recruit some strong helpers to assist in subduing this dangerous species, and even during the forging process, it couldn't be killed. If Tyrant were killed, the forged Imperial Arm would lose its infinite evolutionary characteristic. The value of the Imperial Arm would even drop by a level, becoming a Noble Chariot instead. Shira Incarnation Noble Chariot, an armor-type Imperial Arm developed from the Oni Possession prototype. It has superior performance compared to the operational armor, but lacks the operational armor's transparency ability and its powerful explosive force. As for the last Guardian Deity Mecha Supreme Throne, Naraku didn't even hope to forge this Imperial Arm. Guardian Deity Mecha Supreme Throne. The first and strongest Imperial Arm, both the origin of Imperial Arms and the pinnacle of all Imperial Arms, known as the Supreme Imperial Arm. Legend says it possesses abilities comparable to gods, and only those with Imperial blood can use it. Its secret technique is Purification Mode. Combining alchemy and the characteristics of the Imperial Arm, its appearance transforms into a dragon form. The user is corrupted by the Imperial Arm and becomes bloodthirsty. The destructive power and number of weapons greatly increase, and the hardness of the armor also reaches a higher level. The conditions and materials required for this Imperial Arm were too difficult. Naraku didn't believe it was an Imperial Arm that could be forged by one person or a few people. There was no need to overthink the Sea King's rewarded later. He would use his previous food processing techniques to process them and increase his strength. As for the blue dangerous species Armored Beast, Earth Dragon Beast, and Poison Dragon Beast, these dangerous species could probably be combined with specific situations to forge a few subordinate tools. Considering that no one was customizing weapons at the moment, Naraku continued to practice Shadow Clone Jutsu. Nawaki had previously used Kiri no Ikimonji, which rewarded 1 unit of chakra. Naraku felt he should learn Shadow Clone Jutsu very quickly. Naraku trained in Shadow Clone Jutsu in his room for a while, and he found that indeed, with more chakra, performing this ninjutsu was much simpler. Although the clones Naraku currently created were all weaklings. Finally, after training for 2.5 hours, Naraku finally learned Shadow Clone Jutsu. Rubbing his stomach, Naraku decided to go out and see what delicious food was available. Walking down the street, Naraku suddenly saw a smiling, lecherous middle-aged man. Naraku felt a bit familiar with him and took another look. It was this look that made him recognize the younger version of Hiruzen Sarutobi, who had previously given a speech at the Ninja Academy. Hiruzen Sarutobi immediately called out to Naraku, "Naraku, my boy. I want to talk to you." Naraku had no choice but to go over. After all, he was the boss of this village now, and Naraku couldn't openly defy him. At around 40 years old, Hiruzen Sarutobi was unmatched in strength in the entire village. So Naraku made up his mind that at this stage, he would maintain a superficial friendship with the Konoha higher-ups, at least outwardly acting like a good boy. He had even prepared for some initial cooperation with Hiruzen Sarutobi and even Danzo Shimura. Once he became stronger, and Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura were no longer valuable, he would make them realize what it meant to not eat beef. And the weapons he gave out could be easily reclaimed. "Third Hokage-sama, is there something you need?" Naraku asked, feigning ignorance. Hiruzen Sarutobi kindly said, "Little Naraku, I heard you want to become the greatest blacksmith, and you've already achieved some success." Naraku knew Hiruzen Sarutobi was about to try and brainwash him. Chapter 11. Third Hokage, I want to eat ramen. Care to join me? Naraku used his advantage as a child to interrupt Hiruzen Sarutobi's spellcasting. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression froze. "I'm the Hokage, you know. Let's go to that ramen shop ahead then. I'll treat you to ramen. I'm a bit hungry myself," Hiruzen Sarutobi said with a smile again. Naraku responded with a smile, "Then I thank you, Third Hokage." Afterward, the two ate ramen and chatted. "What do you think of the village?" "The village is everyone's home. How far have you gone in your Will of Fire lessons? What is your understanding of the Will of Fire?" Hiruzen Sarutobi continued to ask. Naraku felt that this old man, no, Hiruzen Sarutobi was only around 40 years old at this time, this perverted uncle was preparing to give him an ideological review. Facing this, Naraku was naturally unafraid and, combining it with his textbook knowledge, said, "The Will of Fire is when the predecessors burn themselves to provide nourishment for those who come after, and those who come after, in turn, sacrifice for those who come even later." Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't find any fault with this answer and probed again, "Then what do you think of the village and the clans?" "There is a clan only if there is a village, and there is a village only if there are many clans. Only when the village, this big family, exists, can the clan, this small family, survive better," Naraku thought to himself, "provided that the cake is divided fairly." Naraku continued with a perfect answer. Hiruzen Sarutobi listened to the brilliant answer and suddenly felt a bit of pity. It was a pity that Naraku was a Uchiha member, otherwise, with this child's understanding of the Will of Fire, he could completely become part of the Hokage lineage. Hiruzen Sarutobi quickly asked the most crucial question, "Little Naraku, you have great talent in blacksmithing. How do you plan to distribute the weapons you forge later?" Naraku had been waiting for this question. "I want to become the most powerful blacksmith in the ninja world. So, as long as the weapons I forge are suitable and meet the cost, I am willing to let every strong person in the village try them. I don't want the weapons I painstakingly forge to be snatched by enemies. If the village has any good materials, they can also give them to me. I am also very willing to forge some weapons." Hiruzen Sarutobi was very happy to hear that this child's vision was not limited to his clan. However, he did not notice that Naraku's vision was not limited to one village or one country either. Hiruzen Sarutobi also showed some ambition. "The village is the backing for your dreams. If you need any help, you can come to me." Afterward, Hiruzen Sarutobi finished his ramen, gave a few words of encouragement, and left contentedly, even paying Naraku's bill. Naraku thought, there should be much less resistance later. In reality, the ninja world was not peaceful at all. The militant factions in various villages were gradually rising, and border skirmishes never ceased. As the sun shone through the window, Naraku prepared to go to the Ninja Academy after a long time to play with his friends and strengthen their bonds. Naraku was very interested in Uzumaki Kushina, or rather, the 9 tails inside her, and he was also somewhat interested in Minato Namikaze's space-time talent. Naraku walked directly into Uchiha Makoto's house without any hesitation. At this time, Uchiha Makoto was having breakfast, with Uchiha Aoko serving nearby. Seeing Naraku arrive, Uchiha Makoto was also very happy and invited him to have breakfast together. Uchiha Aoko, on the other hand, was very displeased with this little Naraku. She didn't understand why the granddaughter of the Uchiha clan's grand elder would like to play with this orphan child instead of the clan leader's son, Uchiha Fugaku. Because of Naraku, Uchiha Makoto and Uchiha Fugaku's relationship became more distant. However, she couldn't change Uchiha Makoto's mind. Sarutobi Haruma, seeing the rare guest Uchiha Naraku, couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. He didn't know why his clan leader had asked him to take extra care of this Uchiha member. He had made preparations, but this guy never came to class, and he couldn't go to the Uchiha clan to drag him out. Minato Namikaze was a bit concerned about his friend not coming for several days and asked Naraku about it. Seeing the concern of the little son, Naraku didn't hide anything and said directly, "I've been forging a ninja sword for Orochimaru-sama these past few days." Hearing Naraku's words, Minato Namikaze couldn't help but express admiration. "Orochimaru-sama. Naraku, the ninja sword you forged must be very powerful." Naraku was waiting for this exact line. "It's just a ninja sword that can conduct chakra and has 2 abilities. At most, if you get cut, you'll bleed for a week." Minato Namikaze, a commoner ninja, had never heard of such a powerful weapon and couldn't help but have stars in his eyes. But then he remembered his own empty pockets and could only agree with the praise. Uzumaki Kushina, next to Minato Namikaze, felt a bit uncomfortable. She didn't understand what was so great about this Uchiha pretty boy. It was as if he had stolen Minato Namikaze's soul the moment he arrived. Although Minato Namikaze was also a pretty boy, she felt she had already taken Minato Namikaze as her subordinate. She was just waiting to tame Uchiha Naraku and then become the leader of the 3. Uzumaki Kushina said to Naraku, "I don't believe you can forge such a powerful weapon." Naraku ignored the little pepper, and instead said earnestly to Minato Namikaze, "You are my first male friend in the Ninja Academy. I will forge a powerful weapon for you for free. Don't be in a hurry to refuse. Just repay me well when you become powerful in the future." Minato Namikaze was instantly struck by this. This situation was like your friend telling you he would buy you a house and a luxury car, and you could repay him when you became successful later. Minato Namikaze wanted to politely refuse, but Uchiha Naraku was offering too much, so he could only blush and agree. "It's just that there's no such custom here. Otherwise, he would definitely have said, 'If you don't abandon me, I, Minato, would like to acknowledge you as my godfather.'" The little pepper saw that she hadn't managed to win Minato Namikaze back at all and became even angrier. Sarutobi Haruma, at the podium, could no longer bear it and had to ask all 3 of them to leave. Standing at the doorway, Naraku looked into the distance, feeling this was a rare experience. After all, he hadn't experienced being made to stand outside the door as punishment since graduating high school. Naraku looked at Minato Namikaze, who was comforting Uzumaki Kushina, and suggested, "Let's go barbecue." This strange line of thought completely stumped Uzumaki Kushina. She had always thought she was the most arrogant person in the entire Ninja Academy, but she didn't expect the Uchiha Naraku in front of her to be even bolder. He simply didn't put the teacher in his eyes at all. She suddenly found this pretty boy Uchiha member a bit more pleasing to the eye. Then she immediately agreed. At this point, Minato Namikaze, the good student, had no choice. He could only follow along. It was difficult for him, a good student, to become good friends with these 2 rascals. The 3 arrived in the wilderness, and Naraku, pretending, took out ingredients from a storage scroll. Uzumaki Kushina curiously looked at the AD calcium milk Naraku handed them, took a sip, and immediately felt that the drink was sweet and delicious. Naraku, meanwhile, took out the sea king he had cut earlier and processed this special ingredient using the food preparation methods he had learned. It's safe to say that it was indeed a green level technique. Under this special technique, the processed sea king was incredibly delicious. Furthermore, Naraku felt that eating this stuff seemed to accelerate growth, as he sensed his height rapidly increasing. His entire body was also quickly becoming stronger. Naraku even felt that after some time, others might say to him, "Are you sure he's only 8 years old?" So Naraku decided to let others try it to see if it was just his imagination, as he himself was at an age of rapid growth. Moreover, Naraku discovered there was too much sea king. He alone had nearly 770 tons of fish meat, based on the recommended healthy diet for an average person of 80–150 grams of meat per day. This much meat would take one person over 14,000 years to eat. Even if he ate frantically, he couldn't possibly finish it in his lifetime, and it was foreseeable that there might be even more Sea Kings in the future, so he decided to let his chosen potential stocks try it. Even if Hiruzen Sarutobi found out and wanted some meat, he could use it to trade for good things. At that time, it would all depend on his acting skills. He had to sell this meat at the price of caviar. The three clinked their calcium milk drinks and then downed them in one go. After refilling, Uzumaki Kushina, seemingly a little milk drunk, said to Naraku, "Uchiha Naraku. In the realm of barbecue, I, Uzumaki Kushina, declare you the strongest." In the distance, Sarutobi Haruma shed tears. Third Hokage had tasked him with fostering bonds between Naraku and the villagers, and another was to foster bonds between Uzumaki Kushina and the villagers. He had definitely completed both missions well. But was the way these people completed it a bit off? And he really wanted to eat that barbecue too. It wasn't until the afternoon that Naraku realized there was a practical combat class. Ai's Ryoko vs Yoshida Koichi. Following Sarutobi Haruma's command, the two civilian ninja formed the confrontation seal and began to fight. Naraku also watched the two civilian ninja fight with great interest. Ai's Ryoko was the first to throw shuriken at Yoshida Koichi, who returned fire with his own shuriken. The shuriken collided in midair and fell, and Yoshida Koichi and Ai's Ryoko began close-quarters combat. Then Yoshida Koichi used a substitution jutsu to trick Ai's Ryoko, landing a punch on him, followed by a suppressive offensive. Ultimately, Yoshida Koichi won the battle. Naraku watched the battles of the civilian ninja at the Ninja Academy, thinking to himself how weak the Ninja Academy students were. But then he remembered that the graduation requirement was at most an assessment of the 3 basic jutsu, and he understood. In fact, even civilian ninja at the genin stage would at most master 1 or 2 C-rank ninjutsu in addition to proficiently using the 3 basic jutsu. Most of their combat still relied on close-quarters fighting. This was the tragedy of civilian ninja, thinking of Sakura in the original story, even during the Chunin exams against Ino. The most they did was throw punches. Ino at least had the mind-body switch technique, while Sakura truly had nothing, and she was considered the top theoretical student in the Ninja Academy. Next was Minato Namikaze vs Hanmoto Gyo. These two were also civilian ninja, but Minato Namikaze was superior in shuriken usage, reflexes, and timing. So Minato Namikaze quickly won. Even Naraku, a novice, could tell that Minato Namikaze was a rough gem. Of course, even a rough gem needs careful cultivation. If Minato Namikaze hadn't had Jiraiya as his teacher, perhaps a regular Jonin would have been his limit. After all, look at how many military achievements the Uchiha had, yet which Uchiha clan members knew the ninjutsu from the Scroll of Seals. Not to mention Sage Mode, that was a realm ordinary ninja could only dream of. Uchiha Naraku vs Uchiha Keita. Uchiha Keita, that Uchiha brat, stood there with a sneer on his face, then mockingly said without reservation, "Naraku, let's see who gets a good beating today. I'll show you how strong I am." His voice was full of provocation and confidence. Uchiha Naraku listened to the other party's words and couldn't help but feel a wave of helplessness. He truly couldn't understand what he had done to provoke this Uchiha brat, why he always harbored such strong malice towards him. He frowned and asked with a hint of confusion in his tone, "What exactly did I do wrong? Why do you always target me?" Uchiha Keita's eyes widened, he straightened his back, looked directly at Uchiha Naraku, and said without any concealment, "It's because you don't act like a true Uchiha clan members at all. And, you're so close to Uchiha Makoto." Uchiha Naraku slowly said, "If the Uchiha in your imagination are all idiots like you, then indeed I'm not. Also, Uchiha Makoto isn't some object, I will definitely marry her." In fact, whether before or after Naraku awakened his memories, there had always been a hint of arrogance in his bones. He didn't possess the so-called pride of a prominent clan that ordinary Uchiha clan members had for the Uchiha. This made him seem different from ordinary Uchiha brat, which is why Uchiha Keita, that Uchiha brat, had always been annoyed with Naraku. Returning to the battle, after Naraku finished speaking, Uchiha Keita immediately lost his composure. He charged forward with his fists raised, cursing, "How dare you look down on the Uchiha?" Naraku showed no fear and engaged in a chicken fight with Uchiha Keita. Their skill levels were actually quite similar, but Uchiha Keita clearly lost his calm. Naraku found an opening and landed a punch. Uchiha Keita, who was sent flying, got up and immediately formed hand signs: snake ram monkey boar horse tiger. Fire release. Great fireball technique. Sarutobi Haruma was originally about to stop the fight when he saw Uchiha Keita getting worked up, but then he noticed that Uchiha Naraku also formed hand signs simultaneously. Fire release. Great fireball technique. Soon, their great fireballs collided. Due to Naraku's abundant chakra, even if his control over ninjutsu was similar to his opponent's, Naraku's great fireball was still relatively larger. So, after neutralizing Uchiha Keita's fireball, Naraku's fireball continued to fly towards his opponent. Uchiha Keita exerted all his strength to dodge the attack, but before he could react, the shadow clone Naraku had used during the fireball collision came forward and started ganging up on him. In just a few moves, Uchiha Keita was defeated. Uchiha Naraku looked at the Uchiha brat and said, "If you truly pride yourself on being an Uchiha clan members, you should learn humility and become stronger." After lecturing the young man, Naraku felt a rush of exhilaration. Was this the pleasure of winning a fight and lecturing your opponent? If there weren't so many people around, he might have even wanted to tap his temple with his finger and say, "Psycho. You're still too soft." Winner Uchiha Naraku. As Sarutobi Haruma announced the result, the audience below began to chatter. "I always thought Uchiha Naraku was handsome. Now I think he's even more handsome. Fighting for the woman he loves and ultimately winning. He's absolutely dashing. Too bad he already has a woman he likes. He's not married yet. There's still a chance." As this sentence was uttered by a girl, other girls looked at Uchiha Naraku with a dangerous glint in their eyes. Uchiha Naraku paid no attention to these women. After all, excellent boys are always sought after. Uzumaki Kushina, however, genuinely came over and said to Naraku, "I didn't expect you to be quite strong. Be my subordinate from now on." "Haha, you're quite humorous," Naraku retorted. At the same time, Naraku always felt a faint, lingering gaze on him, though he wasn't entirely sure. But he felt it was highly likely that Hiruzen Sarutobi, that old ghost, was peeping. Fortunately, this feeling of being spied upon never occurred within the Uchiha clan's compound. Inside the Uchiha head study, the atmosphere was somewhat tense. Uchiha Senjutsu, the current Uchiha head, listened with a grim expression to his subordinate's report. And what the subordinate was reporting was about Uchiha Naraku. Clan head, Uchiha Naraku, that young man who wasn't particularly noticeable before, has recently done something astonishing. The subordinate's tone revealed a hint of disbelief. At only 8 years old, he actually succeeded in forging a weapon comparable to the 7 ninja swords of Kurigakure, and even gifted it to Orochimaru. Uchiha Senjutsu's brows furrowed. Such talent, why did we not discover it before? It is indeed surprising, clan head. His previous performance was always unremarkable, yet he possesses such talent, the subordinate replied. Furthermore, he gave such a treasure to an outsider. Uchiha Senjutsu's voice held dissatisfaction. Is he displeased with our Uchiha clan? Just then, his son, Uchiha Fugaku, walked in. Seeing his father's gloomy expression, his heart tightened, but he still respectfully saluted. "Father, what has made you so angry?" "Fugaku, how much do you know about Uchiha Naraku?" Uchiha Senjutsu asked, looking directly into his son's eyes. Uchiha Fugaku was startled for a moment, then replied, "He wasn't outstanding before, and his talent was only average. In the clan, he wasn't very social, so my understanding of him is limited." "Then, what is his relationship with Uchiha Makoto?" Uchiha Senjutsu suddenly asked. Uchiha Fugaku's heart skipped a beat. Why would his father suddenly ask this question? He hesitated slightly, then replied, "Their relationship should be quite good." "Just good." Uchiha Senjutsu's tone conveyed an undeniable authority. Uchiha Fugaku smiled bitterly in his heart. He knew his father had always thought highly of Uchiha Makoto and had hinted for him to get close to her. But now, the situation seemed to have changed. "Father, didn't you ask me to foster a good relationship with Uchiha Makoto before?" Uchiha Fugaku asked tentatively. "Times have changed. What's most important now is to win over Uchiha Naraku, not to create conflict with him over a woman." Uchiha Senjutsu said coldly, "I will arrange your marriage to the second elder's granddaughter." Uchiha Fugaku felt a pang of bitterness. Could the second elder's granddaughter compare to Uchiha Makoto? Uchiha Makoto's beauty was absolutely top tier within the Uchiha clan, and her personality was also excellent. She could be described as a beauty akin to a Yamato Nadeshiko. Most importantly, he truly liked Uchiha Makoto. He didn't know why, but the moment he saw Uchiha Makoto, he felt it was destined. He even had names planned for their future children, one named Uchiha Itachi and the other Uchiha Sasuke. His eldest son, Uchiha Itachi, would shoulder the burden of the Uchiha clan, possess outstanding talent, and be very filial. His younger brother, Uchiha Sasuke, would be relatively less outstanding in ability but still far ahead of other children in the clan, and be kind and lovable. They would always stay by his and Makoto's side, taking care of them in their old age. He would also be his older brother's most steadfast support. And the story of their brotherly love and respect would spread far and wide with the rise of the Uchiha clan. Alas, he knew his father's decision was unquestionable, but thinking of having to give up Uchiha Makoto, he still felt unwilling. However, he could only suppress this anger in his heart. He thought to himself, Uchiha Naraku. The grudge of a stolen wife is irreconcilable. But he also knew that if he wanted to become the clan head, he couldn't directly retaliate against Uchiha Naraku. At this moment, only the song, Yijien Mei, could represent Uchiha Fugaku's feelings. On the other side, Uchiha Min, the great elder of the Uchiha clan, also received this news. He called his granddaughter, Uchiha Makoto, to his side, wanting to understand more about Uchiha Naraku. "Little Miko, how has that Naraku kid been doing lately?" Uchiha Min asked in a gentle tone. Uchiha Makoto's heart jumped. She worried that her grandfather had found out about Naraku. So she hesitated for a moment, then replied, "Grandpa, Naraku has been doing all right lately." "What's wrong, Grandpa?" But the great elder didn't seem satisfied with her answer. He looked deeply at Uchiha Makoto, then said, "Miko, you are my most beloved granddaughter. I don't want you to do anything foolish because of a man." Uchiha Makoto lowered her head. She knew there was a hidden meaning in her grandfather's words. She sighed inwardly, then looked up and said, "Grandpa, I understand." The great elder nodded, then said, "Then, could you call Uchiha Naraku over? I'd like to have a meal with him." Uchiha Makoto's heart stirred. She knew this was her grandfather's chance to personally learn about Uchiha Naraku. She nodded, then turned and left the room. On her way to find Uchiha Naraku, Uchiha Makoto's heart was filled with complex emotions. She both hoped Uchiha Naraku would gain her grandfather's approval and feared he would be punished for his past actions. She knew that her affection for Uchiha Naraku had already exceeded the scope of ordinary friendship, but she couldn't control her feelings. On the other side, Uchiha Naraku was still unaware of these matters. Naraku now felt that he had achieved some success in forging, and his forging skills had also improved. So, he went directly to Tsukumo Hataki's doorstep and rang the doorbell. After a while, a beautiful but somewhat pale woman opened the door. Hataki Miko looked at the child in front of her, wondering whose child he was. Naraku also looked at the beautiful woman in front of him, guessing, could this be Kakashi's mother? Then she realized she didn't seem to recognize the child in front of her, so she asked, "Child, is there something you need?" Naraku also showed the harmless smile characteristic of a child and said, "Is Lord Tsukumo home? I have an important matter to discuss with him." Hataki Miko saw no threat in the child in front of her, and Naraku also seemed quite well behaved. He probably wouldn't play any pranks. So she let Naraku in. Tsukumo Hataki and Naraku sat on the sofa, staring at each other. Finally, Naraku broke the silence, saying, "Lord Tsukumo, my name is Naraku. I'm sure you've heard of my reputation. I'd like to forge a sword for you." Tsukumo Hataki was silenced by Naraku's directness. He thought for a moment. Naraku seemed to be a somewhat famous blacksmith in Konoha. He had previously forged a Kiri no Ikimonji and given it to Orochimaru. However, he already had his own fighting style, and abilities like continuous bleeding and yang release chakra didn't offer him any particular help. And he was quite accustomed to using his Hataki short blade. So, after a while, Tsukumo Hataki explained the situation to Naraku. Naraku was a little speechless listening to Tsukumo Hataki's words. He hadn't given Kiri no Ikimonji to Tsukumo Hataki earlier precisely because he had considered this point. But now Tsukumo Hataki was actually doubting his abilities. As the saying goes, 30 years east of the river, 30 years west of the river, don't bully a young man for being poor. To become stronger, Naraku explained to Tsukumo Hatake, I'm not limited to forging weapons with just those two functions. And I can directly upgrade the Hatake short blade. Lord Tsukumo, you wouldn't want your beloved ninja sword to be discarded because it can't keep up with your strength or is easily damaged, would you? It wasn't clear in Tsukumo Hatake's hands, but the White Fang short blade had indeed broken when it was in Kakashi Hatake's hands. At this moment, Tsukumo Hatake finally became interested. Although his fighting style rarely involved directly clashing weapons with others, he had always wanted to extend or reinforce his Hatake short blade a little. However, because his Hatake short blade required extremely strong chakra conductivity, this meant that the raw materials for forging needed a large amount of chakra metal. Most people who forged weapons would be considered extraordinary if they could even mix a little chakra metal into their weapons. And the characteristics of the Hatake short blade greatly increased the cost of extending the weapon. The Hatake short blade in Tsukumo Hatake's hand could be said to be a chakra metal weapon passed down through generations of the Hatake clan. At the same time, the excessive amount of chakra metal that had to be contained within the weapon also reduced the possibility of modifying it. Most importantly, although people like Tsukumo Hatake had completed many missions, they were generous and magnanimous, liked to take care of their subordinates, and had a wife and children to support. They weren't so financially well off that they could fully craft a weapon made entirely of chakra metal. After understanding this problem, Naraku confidently explained that he could solve it, stating that he had several precious materials with excellent chakra conductivity while also possessing other special properties. Although their chakra conductivity might not be as good as chakra metal, it was still very strong. He could use these metals to replace the ordinary metal in the Hatake short blade, thereby achieving the effect of enlarging the Hatake short blade. The final result would be that the overall conductivity ratio of the Hatake short blade would not decrease, while its strength would greatly improve. Naraku also let Tsukumo Hatake choose the abilities for the Hatake short blade: movement speed enhancement, short-term burst, earth-style attack, poisoning. You need to choose two of these abilities. Tsukumo Hatake refused again. This time, Naraku was genuinely a little angry. He, the esteemed blacksmith of Konoha, was offering to forge a weapon for Tsukumo Hatake for free. Yet this guy kept refusing him repeatedly, which was quite disrespectful. Naraku made up his mind. This was the last straw. If he refused again, then Naraku would be a dog if he ever forged another weapon for him. Having calmed his anger, Naraku asked Tsukumo Hatake again why he refused. Tsukumo Hatake stated that metals capable of conducting chakra and possessing special abilities were too precious. He felt he couldn't afford the cost. Hearing this, Naraku's anger subsided. He knew Tsukumo Hatake was one of the few honest people in the ninja world, with his own principles. Rather than a ninja, he was more like a samurai who used ninja techniques. Naraku also habitually took the moral high ground. Lord Tsukumo, do you think I didn't consider this? You underestimate my magnanimity, Naraku. Am I forging weapons for money? I am forging swords for Konoha. For the peace and future of Konoha. If you really feel bad about it, then teach me some sword techniques. Tsukumo Hatake was stunned by Naraku's words. He had never imagined that an 8-year-old child could possess such magnanimity. He even felt that if the age difference between them wasn't so great, he would want to become sworn brothers with Naraku. But when he heard Naraku was interested in his sword techniques, he prepared to teach him everything he knew. And he resolved to protect this future of Konoha well in the future. As for the ninja sword's abilities, Tsukumo Hatake didn't overthink it and chose movement speed enhancement and short-term burst. Earth-style attack and poison were not what he needed. What he needed was extreme speed and a single strike to break all techniques. In all martial arts, speed is paramount, and invincibility is key. This was Tsukumo Hatake's fighting style. After understanding the situation, Naraku discussed the weapon details with Tsukumo Hatake again and drew several blueprints for Tsukumo Hatake to choose from. Afterward, Naraku took Tsukumo Hatake's short blade. Hatake Miko watched Naraku take the short blade that had been passed down through generations of the Hatake family. She wondered if her husband had been scammed, and if she shouldn't have let this child in. Naraku, having obtained the Hatake short blade, was just about to get started when Uchiha Makoto came looking for him. Upon learning that Uchiha Makoto's grandfather, Uchiha Min, wanted to see him, Uchiha Naraku suddenly felt a bit annoyed. This old man was not easy to deal with, as the leader of the hawkish faction of the Uchiha clan, Naraku considered him a very stubborn old man. But he couldn't refuse, because he was afraid that he would be tied up and taken to see him while he was forging later. At this moment, Naraku felt the pain of insufficient strength. He didn't need Senju Hashirama's strength. Even if he had Senju Tobarama's strength, he could easily refuse this meal. He could even boldly declare, "Evil old demon of the Uchiha, I will personally, who would dare to disturb his forging after that?" After finishing his QQ, Naraku obediently took a bath and went to see Uchiha Min. At the dinner table, Uchiha Aoko discreetly left the room after serving the dishes. Uchiha Min smiled and said to Naraku, "Little Naraku, what have you been busy with lately?" Naraku, who was eating, put down his chopsticks. He knew the conflict was beginning. "A while ago, I forged a Kiri no Ikimanji for Lord Orochimaru, and now I'm preparing to reforge Tsukumo Hataki's Hataki short blade." Listening to Naraku, who seemed to be siding with outsiders, Uchiha Min did not immediately show any anger. Years of struggle had long taught him to suppress his emotions. "Then when are you going to forge weapons for the Uchiha clan?" Naraku continued to play dumb. "Isn't having the Sharingan enough for the Uchiha?" Hearing this, Uchiha Makoto became a little anxious. After all, despite how amiable the old man in front of them seemed, he had always been a ruthless character who didn't let a killing go unresolved overnight. Uchiha Min was silent for a moment before responding. "This is indeed a problem for the Uchiha. The young people in the clan now are indeed too arrogant. Listening to Lord Madara's stories, they think having the Sharingan is enough. They look down on this and that. What they don't realize is that Uchiha Madara's ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu were all far beyond ordinary levels." Taking advantage of Uchiha Min's speech, Naraku quickly shoveled a few more mouthfuls of rice, then said to Uchiha Min, "I will forge weapons for the clan, but I hope I am not forging weapons for the weak. I certainly don't want the weapons I forged to be snatched by enemies someday." After speaking, Naraku bid farewell to Uchiha Min and Uchiha Makoto before leaving. Uchiha Min slowly smiled as he watched Naraku's retreating figure, thinking to himself, "This child is just like me. He's cold on the outside but warm on the inside, and possesses the Uchiha's arrogance. Primarily, this confidence and good looks, only I, Uchiha Min, in my youth, could compare." Then, Uchiha Min said to his granddaughter, "Makoto, you can interact more with little Naraku in the future." Although Uchiha Makoto didn't know what made her grandfather change his attitude, she obediently nodded. After a night's rest, Naraku returned to the blacksmith's room. Naraku formed hand seals, shadow clone jutsu. A puff of smoke appeared. Behind him were 3 of Naraku's clones. Naraku had only recently remembered that he could use clone jutsu to increase his forging speed. Naraku took out the water dragon beast, the flying mantis's severed limbs, a portion of orichalcum, 10 kilograms of refined iron, a portion of green scarlet sand iron, and scarlet ore, and finally the Hataki short blade. Naraku's main body slowly began to remove the non-chakra metal impurities from the Hataki short blade. Clone number 1 handled the water dragon beast, which was a one-eyed long fish. The clone's main task was to use forging techniques to fuse the water dragon beast's overall essence into its eye. Clone number 2 was smelting the orichalcum metal and processing the flying mantis's severed limbs. This primarily involved infusing the flying mantis's essence into its tail fin before re-smelting it. Clone number 3, on the other hand, was processing the refined iron as well as the green scarlet sand iron and scarlet ore. Once Naraku's main body finished processing the impurities in the Hataki short blade, clone number 2 immediately fused the smelted orichalcum metal into it, forming a powerful and sturdy composite material. Next, Naraku performed a series of forging secret arts to hammer the composite material and engrave specific patterns. After that, he infused the flying mantis's biological essence, refined by clone number 2, into the main body of the sword, meticulously carving special patterns onto the material's surface. Then Naraku took out the refined iron, green scarlet sand iron, and scarlet ore that clone number 3 had processed. Filling the sword's skeletal frame, the sword blank quickly took shape. Naraku hammered the sword blank, and gradually, under his forging, the sword blank was formed. At this point, due to Naraku's previous foresight, there was a circular hollow on the sword blank's hilt. Naraku imprinted the water dragon beast's single eye onto it. He performed one final engraving of patterns using a secret art. Finally, as per the international custom for blacksmiths, he left his mark, Nara, on it. This sword looked very special. It still maintained a double-edged design, showcasing its unique aggressiveness and practicality. The hilt was inlaid with the eye of a water dragon beast, exuding a mysterious and majestic aura. The overall body of the sword presented a pale hue, giving a cold and hard sensation. Upon closer inspection of the sword body, one could see some meticulously carved mysterious patterns. These patterns were intricate and complex, like ancient talismans, imbuing the entire sword with an unfathomable power. Naraku then appraised the sword in his hand. Water Dragon Sword, Special Edition, B+ grade weapon. This sword is infused with the blacksmith's dedication and utilizes a large amount of precious materials, orichalcum, chakra metal, dangerous species, scarlet sand iron, scarlet ore, refined iron. Multiple subordinate tool secret arts were used during the forging process. It took 1 day to forge. It ultimately achieved a level far exceeding the original weapon. This sword is double-edged, 90 centimeters long, possesses the characteristics of sturdiness and sharpness, and has an extremely strong ability to conduct chakra. Previously, due to chakra metal being too expensive, the sword body has now been slightly extended to better meet the user's needs. Skills. 1. After activating the Water Dragon's Eye, combat power is enhanced for 3 minutes, but extreme fatigue will follow its use. 2. After activating the main sword body, movement flexibility and speed are greatly increased for 3 minutes, with relative fatigue following its use. 3. It has a strengthening effect on chakra of a single attribute. Naraku looked at the sword before him, feeling it was incredibly handsome. 2 active skills and 1 passive skill were a significant improvement compared to the previous Hatake short blade. With these few skills, Tsukumo Hatake should be able to exert even more terrifying dominance. After that, Naraku did not sleep. Instead, he used the little time before bed to forge himself a C-grade toy knife using scarlet sand iron, scarlet ore, and refined iron. Of course, even what Naraku called a toy knife was a refined product infinitely close to B-grade. Naraku primarily intended it for future sword training with Tsukumo Hatake. It wasn't that he didn't want to make himself a better one, he himself wasn't in much danger in Konoha right now, and most of the materials he currently possessed were not suitable for forging swords but rather more suited for forging defensive gear. Even if he had the materials and good luck to forge an A-grade weapon, it would be laughable if others tried to rob him because he had a good weapon. His current principle was to quickly forge good weapons for the strong, and then, relying on his golden finger passive, rapidly enhance his strength or personal potential. Later, if he had the chance, he would forge an ultimate life-saving weapon for himself, preferably one with survival capabilities comparable to Orochimaru's, so he could act even more recklessly. The next day, a refreshed Naraku, as usual, used Shadow Clone Jutsu to send a clone to the Ninja Academy. He generally didn't go to the Ninja Academy anymore unless there was a practical combat class. Afterward, Naraku rushed to Tsukumo Hatake's house. Tsukumo Hatake was probably getting a bit impatient. After all, for a swordsman who almost never let go of his sword, not having his sword by his side was as perilous as not having tissues when you're rewarding yourself. At this moment, in Hiruzen Sarutobi's Hokage's office, Danzo Shimura calmly said to Hiruzen Sarutobi that Naraku brat has been quite happy lately. He's gotten very close to the Nine Tails Jinchuriki and has even connected with Tsukumo Hatake, not to mention the people within the Uchiha clan. He is a member of the village, and it's allowed for him to have good relationships with whomever he wishes. This is what bonds are. Hiruzen Sarutobi responded. Danzo sneered. Don't forget, he is an Uchiha member. You haven't forgotten about Uchiha Madara controlling the Nine Tails to try and destroy the village, have you? What is he, an Uchiha member, preparing to do by frequently contacting strong individuals in the village who haven't taken sides? Hiruzen Sarutobi angrily said, Enough. I will not allow you to casually suspect someone from the village, even if he is an Uchiha member. Give up on that idea. I will not transfer him to Root. Danzo quickly stated. Hiruzen, you will regret this. Then, without giving Hiruzen Sarutobi a chance to say, I am the Hokage, he immediately left. At this moment, Hiruzen Sarutobi felt as uncomfortable as if he had eaten dirt, while Danzo was very happy. He wasn't here to demand Naraku this time, instead, he was planting a seed of doubt in his old friend's heart, waiting for it to slowly sprout. When Naraku rang the Hitaki family's doorbell again, a flash of lightning appeared, and Tsukumo Hitaki materialized before Naraku. Looking at Tsukumo Hitaki, who was pale, his steps unsteady, as if all his vitality had been drained, his once straight back was now slightly hunched, like a deflated ball, listless. His eyes, which should have been sharp as an eagle's, were now dim and lifeless. Tsukumo Hitaki said with a hint of urgency, "Is my sword forged?" Naraku could only express that he truly didn't understand swordsmen, to become like this just because his beloved sword wasn't by his side. When Naraku took out the water dragon sword, Tsukumo Hitaki's gaze was instantly drawn to it. Tsukumo Hitaki tremblingly took the sword, which was both familiar and strange to him. "Try it," Naraku said with a smile, gesturing. Tsukumo Hitaki's eyes suddenly became serious. As Tsukumo Hitaki slowly injected his chakra into the water dragon sword, the entire sword's blade gradually turned golden with the infusion of lightning release chakra. Tsukumo Hitaki was a bit surprised by the change before him, but he didn't pay too much attention to this detail. Instead, he slowly sensed his chakra and found that its conduction within the water dragon sword was even stronger, especially the lightning release chakra. Just this point was a great enhancement for him, as the White Fang's primary combat style was to stimulate his body with lightning release chakra to achieve faster speeds. Furthermore, he would inject lightning release chakra into his sword to increase its lethality, supplemented by extremely strong reactions and superb swordsmanship to achieve the goal of instant kill. Ding, Naraku, at the same time, slowly revealed the 3 skills of the water dragon sword one by one. As Naraku spoke, the shock on Tsukumo Hitaki's face was continuous. Whether it was increasing combat power or enhancing movement and flexibility, all were very useful to him. Although each only lasted for 3 minutes and came with a brief negative buff, for a powerhouse of his level, 3 minutes was enough to do many things. He liked the passive single attribute chakra enhancement even more. This directly boosted his combat power, and it was permanent. It could be said that this one passive alone raised his upper limit. Tsukumo Hitaki was also thrilled at the prospect of a hunt and immediately demonstrated a wave of Hitaki sword style in front of Naraku. When Tsukumo Hitaki activated both active skills of the weapon simultaneously, Naraku couldn't even see Tsukumo Hitaki's shadow, only noticing that the shapes of some surrounding buildings or objects had changed. 3 minutes later, Tsukumo Hitaki's figure slowly reappeared. Naraku looked at the 8 dog head statues that had appeared around Tsukumo Hitaki, and his mouth twitched. He used to wonder who Kakashi learned his habit of carving dog heads into earth-style ninjutsu from, despite his limited chakra. So that was the reason. Tsukumo Hitaki at this moment was like a peerless swordsman, standing alone in the center of the circle, feigning coolness. In reality, his body was already exhausted from using 2 skills simultaneously. But as a master, his pride would not allow him to show any weakness. Ding, Tsukumo Hitaki has become the owner of the Water Dragon Sword, and has initially used the Water Dragon Sword. Talent replication activated. Hitaki sword style passed down through the Hitaki family for generations. Beginner mastery. Ding, Tsukumo Hitaki's utilization of the Water Dragon Sword has reached intermediate. Talent replication activated. Hitaki sword style intermediate mastery. Ding, Tsukumo Hitaki's utilization of the Water Dragon Sword has reached advanced. Talent replication activated. Hitaki sword style advanced mastery. With the system's triple ding, many memories of the Hitaki sword style appeared in Naraku's mind, as if he had studied and used the Hitaki sword style for years. This progressive reward also gave Naraku a guess: the higher the weapon mastery level, the better the rewards obtained. From novice to glimpse, from glimpse to entry, from entry to minor achievement, from minor achievement to thorough mastery. When Naraku opened his eyes again, a sharp sense of a swordsman suddenly appeared on him. Tsukumo Hitaki was also stunned by Naraku. Could it be that Naraku had learned and mastered the Hitaki sword style just by watching him demonstrate it once? And even comprehended his own insights. This child is terrifying. I wonder if my son will have the potential to become a peerless swordsman in the future. Naraku, don't ask, I just didn't see anything with my unawakened Sharingan. I didn't even see where you were. Learn what kind of swordsmanship. Afterward, the two exchanged pleasantries for a while before going their separate ways. Hitaki Miko looked at her husband, who was sprawled on the sofa. If she didn't trust her husband's integrity, she would have almost thought he had gone out for a passionate battle with some seductive hussy. Hitaki Miko guessed in her heart, it must be that Naraku again. The last time he came to their house, her husband was dispirited for several days. She had gotten used to it, but today her husband met Naraku again and became paralyzed with excitement. So, is Naraku the seductive hussy? Naraku, walking home, was analyzing why Tsukumo Hitaki's rewards came so quickly. He guessed that it was probably because the sword had a high degree of compatibility with Tsukumo Hitaki, as it was a reforging of Tsukumo Hitaki's constantly used Hitaki short blade, achieving an effect similar to skill inheritance. Naraku suddenly had a somewhat ominous guess, that talent replication, or rather, the talent replication brought by B-grade weapons, might not be able to replicate certain talents or bloodlines. In fact, Naraku wanted Tsukumo Hitaki's swordsmanship talent or Naoki's Senju clan bloodline more, but the rewards were all fixed. Naraku could only wait to increase the number of weapons later to analyze this further. Ding, Orochimaru has become the owner of the Kiri no Ikimonji, and has initially used the Kiri no Ikimonji. Talent replication activated. Summoning technique. Triple Rashomon inherits the first Hokage's five-fold Rashomon. A wide-open maw, summoned as a defensive wall, Rashomon, to absorb all attacks. The first gate bears direct attacks, the second gate reduces the power of attacks, and the third gate disperses the pressure of attacks. With these three gates of varying functions, the power of any attack is greatly diminished by the time it reaches the caster. Intermediate mastery. Ding, Orochimaru used the Kiri no Ikimonji to kill Iwagakure Chunin Iwatsukita. Undead Legion effect activated. Iwagakure Chunin Iwatsukita has now been added to the blacksmith's exclusive Hall of Death. Orochimaru used the Kiri no Ikimonji to kill Iwagakure Chunin Iwatsukita. Undead Legion effect activated. Iwagakure Chunin Iwatsukita has now been added to the blacksmith's exclusive Hall of Death. Looking at the information before him, Naraku knew that Orochimaru had gotten off to a good start with the Kiri no Ikimonji. He even killed two at once. By their names, they seemed to be unlucky brothers. As for the summoning technique, Triple Rashomon obtained through talent replication, Naraku could only say that this ninjutsu was quite good, possessing extremely strong defensive power. It could even withstand a tailed beast ball when fully powered. This was the first time Naraku had used the Undead Legion skill. He found a secluded spot and his consciousness entered the Hall of Death. He saw two ordinary-looking middle-aged men standing blankly inside. Naraku tried to summon them out. Back in the real world, Naraku looked at the two dazed Chunin in front of him and directly ordered them to fight. The two suddenly began to spar seriously. First, they exchanged shuriken, as is customary for ninja, then engaged in close-quarters combat, using substitution jutsu or clone jutsu mid-fight to deceive their opponent. Chunin A used Earth Release. Stone Bullet, spitting out a small stone that grew larger in the air, like a solid cannonball, and hurtled towards Chunin B. Chunin B used Earth Release. Earth-style wall, slamming his hand on the ground to flip up a large stone slab to block the opponent's attack. 3 minutes later, the two figures suddenly vanished, returning to the Hall of Death. Naraku was quite satisfied with the two. Although they seemed to lack intelligence, their combat instincts were quite high. The duration was a bit short, only 3 minutes. He wondered if stronger ninja would behave differently. As for why a soul entering the Hall of Death could emerge as a physical entity and even possess chakra, Naraku was a bit curious, but then he thought that Edo Tensei, with its infinite chakra, was an even stranger existence. So, Naraku decided not to delve deeper for now. After the experiment, Naraku stretched, preparing to grab a late-night snack. He found a scenic spot suitable for moon-gazing and began grilling Sea King outside the Uchiha clan compound. Suddenly, a person wearing a monkey mask and dressed as an Anbu appeared before Naraku. The monkey mask Anbu said, "Naraku, the Hokage has something for you. Come with us." Naraku looked at the Anbu in front of him and increasingly felt that something was wrong. Firstly, Hiruzen Sarutobi shouldn't have anything to ask him at this hour. Secondly, the style of these people was a bit off, they looked more like Root than Anbu. Naraku said to the person in front of him, "Since the third Hokage is looking for me, where is the Hokage's order?" The monkey mask naturally couldn't produce any order, so he said to Naraku with a threatening tone, "Uchiha Naraku, I advise you to come with us." Listening to the threat, Naraku knew that he was 99% likely to have encountered Danzo's people. Naraku thought he was probably not in any real danger, but if that old schemer Danzo lost his mind and forced him or threatened him in some other way, or even crazier, killed him, who would he complain to? Naraku said to the monkey mask, "Can you wait for me to finish my barbecue?" The monkey mask said coldly, "I advise you not to keep the third Hokage waiting. Last warning, come with us." Naraku was furious at this moment. This Danzo was truly disgusting. Naraku immediately picked up the grill and threw it at the root member. He extended his hand and drew the toy sword he had forged earlier. Using chakra to stimulate his body, he used the Hatake sword style and slashed at the monkey mask. The monkey mask had not expected Naraku to suddenly attack and couldn't react in time, only managing to desperately use body flicker technique to dodge the slash. The monkey mask was, after all, a special Jonin of the Konoha village, so his strength was naturally extraordinary. Faced with Naraku's incredibly sharp slash, he remained calm in the face of danger, his figure flashing. He instantly performed a superb body flicker technique, like a ghost, avoiding the fatal blow. However, despite successfully dodging the slash, the monkey mask's arm was unfortunately cut, and blood immediately gushed out. He endured the intense pain, quickly mobilized the chakra within his body, and used medical ninjutsu to stop the bleeding and heal himself. He formed hand signs, and a powerful chakra energy surged from his body, converging at his injured arm. Under the effect of the chakra, the wound gradually healed, and the bleeding slowly decreased. The monkey mask said with a coldness tinged with anger, "Since you won't cooperate, don't blame me." Naraku was a bit disappointed that his sneak attack didn't kill the enemy, but he also knew that although he had high-level mastery of the Hatake sword style, he had no lightning release, so it was difficult to achieve greater speed. Furthermore, his raw power was insufficient, and he hadn't had time to properly practice the Hatake sword style, so he couldn't fully utilize its potential. However, Naraku was not going to give up resistance. He formed hand signs and used shadow clone jutsu. Naraku and 3 clones exchanged glances, then simultaneously charged at the monkey mask root member with their swords. 2 shuriken and 1 punch were all it took for the monkey mask to cleanly dispatch Naraku's shadow clones. Facing Naraku's deadly slash, the monkey mask showed no fear and blocked it with his ninja sword. With a clang, a large chunk of iron broke off the monkey mask's ninja sword. This time, the monkey mask chose not to create distance. Not daring to attack with his sword, he used body flicker technique to move behind Naraku and delivered a powerful punch. Naraku had no time to dodge and was sent flying a great distance by the punch. After taking that punch, Naraku felt as if his internal organs had been displaced. He lay on the ground for a long time before he could get up. The monkey mask emphasized once again, "Please come back with me to see the Hokage." Naraku, always arrogant and believing himself to be a transmigrator with a golden finger, had always treated Konoha village with nonchalance. Now, he was experiencing the dark side of Konoha village relatively directly. Naraku regretted the cursed barbecue spot he had chosen. This place was usually deserted. That perverted third Hokage never used his telescope jutsu after 10 at night either. He now faced a choice: either obediently go to Root and accept Danzo's manipulation and brainwashing. The second was to fight. He was certain that the guy in front of him wouldn't dare to kill him, so he might be able to use that to turn the tables. Perhaps it was a matter of bloodline, or perhaps personality, but Naraku's ferocity surged. He felt like killing the Root member in front of him. But Naraku considered his life precious, so he decided to try. If it didn't work, he would run. Naraku struggled to his feet and said to the monkey mask, "Do you know? I invited a few Uchiha members to eat barbecue with me. When do you think they'll arrive?" The monkey mask was startled by Naraku's words. Naraku quickly formed hand signs and used shadow clone jutsu. He created 4 clones. Then the clones quickly ran towards the center of the Uchiha clan compound. The monkey mask also hurried to chase them. After cutting down 2 clones, the monkey mask was about to cut down the third when the clone countered with a slash. The monkey mask barely managed to block it. However, he didn't notice Naraku's main body behind him. Naraku found the right angle and used the Hatake sword style to deliver a full power slash at the monkey mask. The monkey mask didn't even have time to speak before he was cut in half. Blood and organs splattered everywhere. Naraku used his system space to store the corpse on the ground and quickly ran back home. Naraku, back in his home within the Uchiha clan compound, gasped for breath, looking at himself in the mirror. A small tomo appeared in Naraku's eye. Naraku knew that he had awakened his Sharingan. Naraku carefully admired his Sharingan, as if appreciating a work of art. Despite his rapid breathing, Naraku felt none of the confusion, pain, or fear he had experienced during his first kill. Perhaps it was due to the Uchiha clan's bloodline inheritance, or perhaps the influence of the madness deep within Naraku's heart, but the corners of his mouth gradually curved into a smile. Initially, the smile was faint, just a soft chuckle. But as time passed, the laughter grew louder, more wild and unrestrained. Finally, Naraku burst into laughter, his voice echoing in the air. After laughing for a while, Naraku reined in his smile. He didn't know why, but he had grown to like this feeling. He finally understood why the Uchiha's four mad laughter geniuses enjoyed such unrestrained laughter. After calming down, Naraku began to review his recent battle. He could say that his purity was too low. Despite having a large amount of chakra and superb swordsmanship, he hadn't utilized them very effectively. This was related to his inability to fully digest his own conditions. If the monkey mask hadn't been trying to capture him alive without causing excessive harm, he would have died countless times over. Furthermore, although the monkey mask was a special Jonin, his specialty should be in non-combat areas, possibly a hidden ability. He urgently needed time to further leverage his own advantages. Firstly, he desperately needed to acquire lightning release chakra and train in the Hitaki sword style. Secondly, he needed to learn more ninjutsu. Although he could rely on his swordsmanship to break all techniques with a single strike, he still needed various ninjutsu as support. Moreover, it would be difficult for him to reach the level of breaking all techniques with a single strike in a short time. However, he still had time. He decided that tomorrow he would move to Makoto's house. He wanted to see if Danzo still dared to send people to stir up trouble at the Uchiha elder's house. As for his minor grudge with Danzo, Naraku was much more magnanimous. In the early stages, he wasn't allowed to kill Danzo, given the relationship between Hiruzen Sarutobi and that dog Danzo. If he really killed Danzo without betraying the village, it would only happen if Hiruzen Sarutobi was overthrown. And perhaps because Naraku's name was the same as the boss in Inuyasha, Naraku's own revenge habits sometimes resembled that spider demon's. He wouldn't kill one of Danzo's subordinates today and then cut off Danzo's left and right arms tomorrow. Then, from time to time, argue with Danzo, making him scream in anger. In Naraku's opinion, that kind of retaliation was no different from a child's. He believed in not making a move unless absolutely necessary, but once he did, he would only bring despair and irreversible ruin to his enemies. For this, even if he suffered some so-called grievances on the surface during the process, he wouldn't take it particularly to heart, as long as it allowed him to grow faster. Imagine if one day, that dog Danzo suddenly discovered that the person he thought he could easily manipulate had shattered his dream of becoming Hokage. Sending him to meet the six-path sage, that feeling should be quite good, right? At the same time, Danzo Shimura was darkly hidden in his root office, waiting for his subordinates to arrive. Suddenly, a rabbit mask appeared before Danzo. Lord Danzo, Subject 32 is dead. It's unclear who killed him. Danzo murmured, it seems it's not so simple to meet you, Uchiha Naraku. The next day, Naraku packed his bedding and arrived at Uchiha Makoto's house. Uchiha Makoto looked at Naraku, who was carrying his bedding, her small head filled with great confusion. Naraku, what are you doing? Naraku smiled solemnly and said to Uchiha Makoto, I'm here to be a child husband and a live-in son-in-law, Makoto. Our children will take your surname. Uchiha, all right. Uchiha Min looked at Naraku and wasn't particularly angry. Being experienced, he felt that things weren't that simple, so he said to Makoto, go help your child husband tidy up a room. Uchiha Makoto pouted, Grandpa, what are you saying? When did I say I was going to marry Naraku? It's, marry me, not, marry to me. Naraku corrected. Uchiha Makoto didn't speak but glared at Naraku. Later, Naraku looked at the room Makoto had tidied up and couldn't help but praise it. She truly lived up to her reputation as a good wife and loving mother in the original work. He would be blessed in the future. Later, Naraku, as usual, used a shadow clone and went to school with Uchiha Makoto. Uchiha Min found Naraku and said, "Did something happen?" Naraku merely said that Danzo Shimura's people had come for him, and he had only escaped using some methods. Uchiha Min didn't show excessive anger but calmly said, "This is the village. The malice of the Hokage faction. Such things won't happen to Ino Shikacho, nor to the Hyuga clan. But they can happen to the Uchiha. You should stay here from now on. I will build you a new forging room." After speaking, Uchiha Min slowly left the room. Naraku looked at the departing old man. He realized that this Uchiha Hawk leader was not as simple as he had previously thought. He had been a bit too arrogant. It seemed that what appeared to be various foolish actions by characters in the original work might have been understood by some clever people. They were simply limited by insufficient strength or information, leading to an inability to reverse the situation. On the balcony, Tsunade and Nawaki were chatting on the rooftop. Nawaki was pleading with his sister Tsunade, "Sister, please give me that necklace. I know you want to give it to me as my 12th birthday present." Tsunade said with a hint of helplessness, "Who asks for their own gift?" Nawaki fully employed the tactic of crying, making a scene, and threatening to hang himself, imploring his sister Tsunade to give him the gift. Finally, Tsunade, unable to bear Nawaki's persistence, gave him the gift early. Nawaki took the gift, smiling, and put it on. Naraku found Tsukumo Hatake, who was resting at home. Tsukumo Hatake happily said, "You're finally here, Naraku. I said I'd teach you swordsmanship." Naraku respectfully said to Tsukumo Hatake, "Lord Tsukumo, I have indeed come for that. I have always wanted to experience the Hatake sword style." Actually, Naraku mainly came to legitimize his acquisition of the Hatake sword style. Otherwise, it would be a bit unbelievable for him to have learned all of the Hatake sword style just by seeing Tsukumo Hatake use it once. Tsukumo Hatake slowly said, "Actually, the Hatake sword style is not very difficult. It mainly requires talent, a lot of practice, and personal understanding. There isn't much that truly needs to be memorized. First is beginner mastery. This level doesn't require too many chakra techniques. The main thing is to attach chakra to the sword and utilize one's own footwork. Then, perform some regular attacks. To achieve intermediate mastery, one must learn to use chakra to further enhance their speed. Moreover, at this stage, the sword style will also undergo some entirely new changes. The direct impact of these changes is that the attack power becomes stronger, and the speed of drawing the sword becomes faster and more agile. To reach advanced mastery, one must skillfully utilize various transformation methods of lightning release chakra. Not only that, but one also needs to fully activate lightning release chakra, allowing it to integrate into their body and weapon. Only then can it be called the perfect state of the Hatake sword style. In this state, the user can unleash the power of lightning to its fullest, with every strike carrying the force of a thunderbolt, incredibly powerful and leaving the opponent defenseless. Hatake ultimately did not reveal the realms beyond, but Naraku understood. Meanwhile, Tsukumo Hatake watched Uchiha Naraku, who, in his first lesson, went from a novice to intermediate mastery, and his jaw dropped completely. If Naraku could achieve advanced mastery of the Hatake sword style, Tsukumo Hatake would probably go completely insane. After all, he considered himself somewhat talented, yet he had only just broken through advanced mastery to reach perfect mastery. He even tried to persuade Naraku to fully devote himself to swordsmanship, but Naraku knew his own situation. He had mastered the Hatake sword style entirely through his golden finger, and he didn't have lightning release chakra. He couldn't reach advanced mastery yet. Afterward, Naraku fled as if for his life, under Tsukumo Hatake's reluctant gaze. Naraku's life, after moving into Uchiha Makoto's home, enjoyed a rare period of stability. During this stable period, Naraku spent his mornings practicing Hatake sword style, chakra control, and taijutsu, while afternoons and evenings were dedicated to honing his blacksmith skills. His 3 meals a day consisted of devouring sea kings. The result was a steady increase in Naraku's ninja strength, and his blacksmith skills approached A rank with constant refinement. These changes were not very obvious. The most noticeable change was his height. Naraku had grown from a 1.2-meter Uchiha brat to a 1.7-meter youth. Unlike his childhood appearance, Naraku could now be described as a handsome young man praised by everyone. During this time, due to the changes in his height and appearance, Uchiha Makoto and Uchiha Min were the most shocked. Uchiha Min even said more than once behind his back, is he really 8 years old? Because Naraku had grown taller than him in just 6 months. Naraku, however, was a little worried that he was already so tall at only 8 years old. If he continued to eat processed sea kings, he might end up being 3 meters tall, like the 3 great admirals of the Navy. The girls he liked, Uchiha Makoto and Tsunade, would most likely not exceed 165 centimeters in height. If they walked together, the scene would be too beautiful. The faces of Uchiha Makoto and Tsunade would probably be at the same height as Naraku's crotch. But Naraku decided to worry about it later. There would always be a way to solve the height problem. He couldn't give up the chance to become strong quickly for this reason. Naraku opened his personal panel after a long time. System member level, Junior. Name, Uchiha Naraku. Age, 8 years old, 80 years old. Chakra attributes, Fire, Yin, Yang. Sharingan, Unawakened right pointing arrow single tomo. Stamina, C right pointing arrow B+. Chakra, 1.2 right pointing arrow 2 Kaka Kaka. Chakra volume of Jonin Kakashi. Chakra control ability, Poor right pointing arrow medium. Ninjutsu, Clone Jutsu Junior, Transformation Jutsu Junior, Substitution Jutsu Junior, Fire Release, Great Fireball Technique Junior, Mastered Summoning Technique, Triple Rashomon, Hitaki Sword Style Advanced Mastery, Fire Release, Great Fire Annihilation Intermediate Shadow Clone Jutsu Junior. Taijutsu, Uchiha Style Taijutsu Junior. Genjutsu, Demonic Illusion, Hell Viewing Technique Junior. Evaluation, your strength has reached the level of an elite Chunin, and you can even contend with some special Jonin head-on. Unfortunately, Chunin are just cannon fodder. Naraku automatically ignored the system's discouraging words. An elite Chunin at this stage was still very powerful. It was only later that things would fall apart. So Naraku prepared to continue refining his blacksmith skills and walked leisurely towards the blacksmith room. Naraku could be said to be a homebody now, especially since he changed his bound blacksmith room. Uchiha Min looked at Naraku with a deep gaze. Even with his composure, he couldn't help but ask Naraku, Uchiha brat, how did you do it? Growing so tall in 6 months. This is the talent of the Uchiha clan, you wouldn't understand. HMPH, come and eat. Naraku glanced at Uchiha Min mockingly, then threw a portion of Sea King barbecue to Uchiha Min. He felt a little pity for the old man, who hadn't eaten much fine food for so many years. Uchiha Min's veins bulged on his forehead, thinking, a Uchiha brat is a Uchiha brat. Even if he looks like an adult, his words are still so irritating. Stinky Uchiha brat, have you awakened your Sharingan? Naraku had not revealed that he had awakened his Sharingan, because generally, the earlier one awakens their Sharingan, the higher their talent. Naraku didn't want to attract attention. My 3-tomo Sharingan didn't discriminate against you, but you're discriminating against me. You evil Uchiha brat, watch me right now. Naraku saw Uchiha Min about to make a move and quickly ran away. Uchiha Min, after all, still had some dignity and didn't chase after him. He just looked at the barbecue in his hand and fell into deep thought. Upon arriving at the blacksmith room, Naraku, unswayed, began to hone his blacksmith skills. He activated his Sharingan. That's right, Naraku discovered during the blacksmith process that activating his Sharingan allowed him to observe some details of the blacksmith process more meticulously. He wondered what Uchiha Madara would think if he saw this scene. Lord Madara would probably be very pleased to see a junior developing the Sharingan for blacksmith. Naraku took out scarlet sand iron, scarlet ore, and refined iron and began to smelt them. With unique forging techniques, a blade blank gradually formed. After that came Naraku's original secret pattern. This pattern was invented by Naraku after summarizing subordinate tool blacksmith techniques. He wanted to see if he could forge subordinate tools without using biological materials. With the completion of the last pattern, followed by cooling, the entire ninja sword was completely finished. Naraku looked at the standard ninja sword in front of him and immediately used appraisal. Standard B Ninja Sword, Pseudo, a ninja sword forged by blacksmith Naraku, turning the impossible into possible. However, due to the inherent shortcomings of the ninja sword's materials, this ninja sword can only be used once. Skill, charged / input chakra into the ninja sword, and then the ninja sword will emit a powerful sword chi to strike the enemy. The more chakra inputted, the higher the damage. Ding, blacksmith level. B plus A blacksmith room bonus right pointing arrow A blacksmith room bonus. Ha ha ha, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Naraku burst into laughter, not just because of this ninja sword. It was because his blacksmith skills had finally broken through B plus level and reached A level. This also meant that he could finally forge the A rank armor, Oni possession. After a while, Naraku reined in his smile. Although he was a boy who loved to laugh. But with no audience present, he felt something was missing. After putting the standard ninja sword into his system space, Naraku prepared to find Nawaki, because the special dragon-shaped dangerous species, Tyrant, the biological material essential for forging Oni possession, had to be alive and forged while alive. With Naraku's current strength, he was completely unable to deal with this creature, and Tyrant's terrifying survival characteristic also made Naraku a little afraid. So Naraku needed to gather some people. Naraku, arriving at the entrance of the Senju clan compound, knocked on the door once again. This time, the person who opened the door was not Nawaki, but Tsunade. Naraku looked at Tsunade before him. Her golden hair cascaded like a waterfall over her shoulders, shimmering with a captivating glow. Tsunade's face was exquisitely beautiful, every detail exuding a unique charm. Her slightly upturned lips revealed a hint of cuteness, but also concealed a touch of slyness. Tsunade wore a snow-white top, forming a stark contrast with her golden hair. Although only 22 years old, Tsunade already possessed an extraordinarily ample chest. While Naraku observed Tsunade, Tsunade also observed the man in front of her. Naraku was now 1.70 meters tall, with a straight posture, like a white poplar. A loose robe covered him, yet it did not diminish his grace in the slightest, instead, it accentuated his distinguished demeanor. His face had distinct features, handsome with a hint of nonchalance. His black pupils were deep, making one unable to help but get lost in them. The corners of his mouth were slightly upturned, revealing a faint, elusive smile. Even if Tsunade wasn't a love-struck fool, as a young woman, under the influence of hormones, she felt a sense of love at first sight when looking at Naraku. The 8-year-old Naraku, however, was not affected by hormones. Seeing Tsunade blush slightly, he asked, "Lady Tsunade, is Nawaki home?" Tsunade quickly reacted and said, "Nawaki is here. Who are you?" "Just call me Naraku," Naraku replied with a smile. Tsunade searched her memories but didn't know who this Naraku was. The only Naraku she knew was an 8-year-old boy who was rumored to be very skilled at forging. "Come in first. I'll go call Nawaki," Tsunade invited Naraku inside. Nawaki looked at Naraku with a blank expression. He didn't know this person either. "Nawaki, I am Naraku, the Naraku who forged the Kiri no Ikimanji," Naraku could only remind him again. Nawaki directly asked Naraku, "Master Naraku, how did you grow so tall in 6 months?" "It's a secret, it's not important. Nawaki, I want to forge a powerful weapon. I might need the help of your teacher Orochimaru." Naraku did not directly answer Nawaki's question but stated his need. Nawaki did not hide anything and informed Naraku that Orochimaru had gone on a mission and might be back much later. Naraku recalled that the Second Great Ninja War would begin next year and guessed that Orochimaru should have gone to the Land of Fire's border, which explained why Orochimaru had killed 2 Iwagakure ninja earlier. "Master Naraku, why do you need teacher Orochimaru's help?" "Can I help?" Nawaki inquired. Naraku explained, "I plan to forge a powerful ninja tool for you. This ninja tool can provide its owner with powerful defense and other combat power enhancements. But it needs a terrifyingly strong creature as a material, and I need someone to help me subdue that creature. This creature has powerful adaptability and vitality, and it cannot be subdued by ordinary ninja. It even requires the ninja to master powerful sealing jutsu." Tsunade naturally knew Naraku's forging skills. Now that Naraku was forging this powerful ninja tool for her younger brother, she naturally stepped forward and asked, "Can I do it?" Naraku nodded and then shook his head. "Lady Tsunade naturally can, but it's not enough. It would be best to find another strong person to help." "Lady Tsunade, can you find one?" Naraku originally wanted to find Tsukumo Hatake, but unfortunately, Tsukumo Hatake was not in the village. Tsunade was a bit dismissive. Although her current strength was not comparable to teacher Sarutobi, she was still at the pinnacle of Konoha. If even she couldn't do it, was the creature he needed a tailed beast? However, Since Naraku had said so, she decided to go find Jiraiya. Although Jiraiya wasn't in the village recently, Tsunade knew he was still within the land of fire, and she just needed to contact Jiraiya. With Jiraiya's speed, he could arrive in half a day. The next day, in the forest outside Konoha, Naraku, Nawaki, Tsunade, and Jiraiya walked through the forest. Nawaki. Master Naraku, where is that dangerous species? Naraku looked at the open space in front of them and said, it can be here. Lady Tsunade, Toad Sage, are you ready? Tsunade nodded and said, I'd like to see what kind of dangerous species it is. Jiraiya shivered and said, what dangerous species would I, Toad Sage Jiraiya, be afraid of? Naraku silently chanted to release Golden Special Dragon Type Dangerous Species Tyrant alive. Ding! Golden Special Dragon Type Dangerous Species Tyrant alive has been released. Accompanied by a roar, a strange creature appeared. The creature's head was shaped like a kangaroo's, but its entire face was extremely ferocious. It had 6 eyes, 2 larger main pupils, and 4 relatively smaller auxiliary pupils, all a vivid red, like burning flames, revealing a bloodthirsty gaze that sent chills down one's spine. Its mouth was densely packed with sharp fangs. Its body was muscular, covered in black fur. Its limbs were thick, and its paws had sharp claws. Additionally, the creature's back and tail seemed to have some sharp spines or protrusions. Overall, this creature gave off a bloodthirsty, powerful, and mysterious feeling. Naraku quickly pulled Nawaki away from the scene, leaving the battlefield to Tsunade and Jiraiya. Both Jiraiya and Tsunade had solemn expressions. The pressure of being at the top of the food chain that Tyrant exuded also made them feel it. Both of them bit their fingers immediately and slammed them onto the ground. Summoning Jutsu. 2 huge clouds of smoke flashed, and 2 behemoths appeared on the battlefield. Tsunade said, Lady Katsuyu. I'm counting on you. Katsuyu said in a girlish voice, all right, Lady Tsunade. Gamabunta exclaimed, Jiraiya, what the hell is this thing? It's so ugly. Jiraiya. Boss, this thing mainly has strong vitality. Just be careful and go for it. Gamabunta also drew his long sword. Tyrant arrived in the ninja world, and with its powerful adaptability, it quickly adapted to the environment of the ninja world. As time passed, it also sensed natural energy. A massive amount of natural energy was pouring into its body. This violent influx of natural energy made its body even stronger. As time passed, it would become even more powerful. Although Jiraiya had not yet fully mastered Sage Mode, he also sensed the powerful natural energy integrating into Tyrant's body, and he secretly groaned in his heart. Tsunade, unaware of this, directly ordered Katsuyu, perform an acid attack. Katsuyu puffed out her mouth and spat a large amount of acid onto Tyrant. Tyrant, who was frantically devouring natural energy, naturally didn't have time to dodge, and a large amount of corrosive acid immediately splashed onto its body. The fur on Tyrant's body was immediately corroded, but its tough skin was resisting the corrosion, and this resistance brought it immense pain. Tyrant then roared again, this time with the apparent aid of natural energy. It was extremely powerful. Everyone present was stunned by this roar, which carried a hint of natural energy, and covered their ears. Remember, Tyrant has strong vitality. It possesses extremely strong adaptability. It's very possible that the same or similar attacks will become less effective or even ineffective against it over time. So, we must attack fiercely. Naraku shouted. Hearing Naraku's words, Jiraiya and Tsunade felt even more troubled. As time passed, a massive amount of natural chakra continued to gather within Tyrant, and Tyrant's body also grew larger, gradually increasing from its previous 7 meters to 10 meters. Jiraiya naturally noticed this situation and said to Tsunade, hurry up, that thing is constantly getting stronger. Then he turned to Gamabunta and ordered, use your sword. Gamabunta took a big leap, soaring high, then slashed his sword at Tyrant's neck. On the other side, Tsunade once again ordered Katsuyu to use acid attack. This time, Tyrant finally seemed to gain a bit of conscious awareness, dodging Gamabunta's sword with a leap, but was hit by Katsuyu's acid again. This time, it didn't roar, but instead fled into the distance. Tsunade and Jiraiya naturally wouldn't allow such a dangerous species to escape, so they urged their summoned beasts to chase after it. However, Tyrant seemed to disappear for a moment. The two clearly saw it escape into the small woods, but they couldn't find any trace of it. Logically speaking, it should be almost impossible for a 10-meter-tall tyrant to hide itself, but Jiraiya, standing on top of Gamabunta's head, suddenly felt his hair stand on end. An extremely dangerous feeling surged into his heart, as if a sharp blade was hanging above his head, ready to fall at any moment. This feeling made Jiraiya immediately begin forming hand signs to use ninjutsu. He channeled the chakra within his body, making his silver long hair instantly as hard as iron, and quickly wrapped it around his entire body, forming a solid shield, preparing to meet the imminent attack. At the same time, Gamabunta also sensed that something was wrong. He swung the weapon in his hand, trying to attack the invisible enemy. However, just then, Tyrant violently swung its huge claw, fiercely swiping down at Gamabunta. With a rip sound, a deep claw mark immediately appeared on Gamabunta's arm, and blood gushed out from it. And Jiraiya was not spared. He was also sent flying by Tyrant's claw, his body arcing through the air before falling heavily to the ground. Seeing this, Tsunade's eyes narrowed, and chakra surged wildly within her. A powerful chakra gathered in her fist. Then, she fiercely threw her fist, carrying a sharp momentum and a piercing whoosh, smashing it hard against the dangerous species, Tyrant. With a loud bang, Tyrant was sent flying like a cannonball, its body arcing through the air before crashing heavily onto the ground dozens of meters away. A large crater immediately appeared in the ground, and smoke and dust billowed. Tyrant's body continued to slide forward due to inertia, breaking thick trees one by one. Finally, it stopped, lying on the ground in a sorry state. Clearly, Tsunade's monster strength fist had caused it considerable damage. But Tsunade watched as the dangerous species' body was still recovering rapidly, and Tyrant's body was slowly melting into the environment. This guy wanted to become invisible again. Just as Tsunade was about to go and deliver another punch, Jiraiya said to Tsunade, "Tsunade, use Katsuyu's mucus to slow it down. I'll attack with fire release." Katsuyu spat out mucus again. This time, the mucus was not very corrosive but very sticky. The two watched Tyrant struggle violently after being hit by the mucus, and only then did they realize that this fellow had been feigning weakness just now. It probably intended to ambush them again once they got close. "Gamabunta, toad oil," Jiraiya said to Gamabunta. Gamabunta also agreed wholeheartedly. His arm had just been scratched by Tyrant. This sensation was not pleasant, and all he wanted now was to roast the monster. Gamabunta puffed out his cheeks, then opened his mouth and spat. A large stream of oil like toad oil sprayed towards Tyrant. Jiraiya began forming hand signs, using fire release to boost the attack. The fire release combined with the toad oil created an even more powerful flame. This was Jiraiya's most powerful fire release Great Flame Bomb. Tyrant roared frantically under the terrifying flames, but this time Jiraiya and Gamabunta suppressed their discomfort and continued to use their ninjutsu. Gradually, Tyrant's roars grew softer and softer, and finally, its entire body stopped struggling and fell to the ground. It wasn't until Gamabunta had spat out all the toad oil from his belly that Jiraiya slowly ended his fire release. Everyone present looked at Tyrant's once arrogant body, its surface now carbonized. Just as Jiraiya was about to seal this monster, Tsunade stopped him. Tsunade formed hand signs and used earth release, swamp of the underworld, creating a huge swamp to slowly sink Tyrant into it. Tyrant revived again when its body was half submerged, and began to struggle violently. As it struggled, its previously carbonized skin slowly peeled off. Tsunade and Jiraiya looked at Tyrant shedding its carbonized shell to reveal new skin, their expressions a bit grim. They completely understood how exaggerated Naruto's description of its terrifying vitality and extreme adaptability was. Moreover, with this creature's adaptability, if it continued to live, would there come a day when it could become immune to most ninjutsu? Tsunade and Jiraiya, seeing that Tyrant couldn't move, prepared to launch another attack. Tsunade's eyes turned cold. She took a deep breath, then leapt high and fiercely threw a punch, with unparalleled power and speed, striking Tyrant's left side. This punch was like a thunderbolt. At the same time, Jiraiya was not to be outdone. He condensed chakra into his hair, and Jiraiya's white hair began to grow wildly. Finally, Jiraiya controlled his hair to drill into Tyrant's brain. "Gamabunta!" Jiraiya shouted to Gamabunta. Gamabunta also drew his long sword again and charged up power on the spot. Just 3 dull thuds were heard. Tsunade's fist slammed hard into Tyrant's left side. Instantly, Tyrann's left body burst open as if struck by a heavy hammer, blood gushing out like a fountain, splattering everywhere. On the other side, Jiraiya's hair accurately hit Tyrann's right side. The powerful penetration and destructive force disfigured Tyrann's body, revealing the chilling white bones underneath, a truly shocking sight. Finally, Gamabunta also swung his sword with full force at Tyrann's head. The force of this strike was so great that even Tyrann's brain matter beneath its skull was visible. The entire scene was extremely bloody and violent, sending shivers down one's spine. Finally, after a series of attacks, Tyrann finally became still. Jiraiya quickly used multiple 5-element seal to seal Tyrann into a scroll. Tsunade and Jiraiya both panted heavily, while Katsuyu and Gamabunta, seeing the battle end, greeted the two and returned to the summoning world. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe for more videos.